My entitled job literally tries to screw us out of our PTO, as they simultaneously demand that we use it, but also make it impossible for us to use it. So I decided to get some revenge by finding a fantastic workaround, one that quite literally shook this company to its core and dipped our productivity down to the lowest point it's probably ever been. And I honestly feel super satisfied doing this because these people were really trying to screw us over. Here's how it happened. Okay, so the company sends a shiny human resources email with the subject line in all caps saying that you either use it or lose it. Basically, we had to burn our remaining PTO by the 30th or it evaporates into the sun. On the same day, my manager announces in stand-up that due to the quarter ending, no one can take time off until the 1st. I asked how to reconcile that and he just shrugs and says you need to talk to human resources. But when I talk to them, they say I need to talk to my manager. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a cute loophole you got there. So I decided to open the handbook because I am a very petty librarian when I'm really annoyed. And it was on page 14 that I found this little sentence that I never noticed. It said the following: PTO requests not explicitly denied in writing within 48 business hours are considered approved. There's also a note that partial day PTO is allowed in 1-hour blocks. And I think to myself, oh, thank you so much, legal team. So I submitted 10 separate requests: 2 hours every morning next week, 2 hours every afternoon the week after, a random Friday from 3 to 5 to watch a plumber, and 1 full day to visit my mom. So I sent the request in the portal, which auto emails the manager and basically forwards it to a shared mailbox that nobody watches. Then I went back to my job and I set reminders. Well, 48 business hours later, and yeah, there's no denials. In fact, the portal changes each request to an approved green check mark, and there's a confetti gift that plays along with it. Monday comes around, and at 9:58 in the morning, I put a cheerful note in the team chat. I say to them, heading out, I'll see you at noon. My manager then pings me to hop on a client call, and I reply with a screenshot of the policy and the portal approval. And when I did that, there was silence. For a brief second, there was like 3 dots typing, but then there was nothing. By Wednesday, our calendar looked like cheese. Half the team remembered they also had personal time off sitting around and started filling it out in little blocks. Meetings kept colliding with green bars, and finance realized that if we did not use those days now, they would be paid out at separation later, which they absolutely hate. Human Resources wrote a new post saying that we should coordinate, but that approvals already granted will stand. My manager then called a huddle to ask why productivity dipped, and I said that we're just following Human Resources instructions to use PTO, but he said he meant in November. I then sent him the original email timestamped this month, and he sighed and said he never thought anyone would actually read the handbook. I used every hour and even took my mom to lunch, and in fact, my plumber fixed the cursed sink at about 3:40 while I drank tea. The next week, a new policy appeared. PTO must be requested in full day increments during the end of the quarter, and managers must respond in 24 hours. So I just think to myself, oh yeah, thanks for clarifying, but honestly, the damage is already done, because it truly was satisfying to get this kind of malicious compliance. Holy crap, they really did cut you in like some stupid time loop. Like, dude, I didn't know we were dealing with Doctor Strange. Are you kidding me right now? Like, holy crap, my manager, I've come to bargain my PTO, only to then have to dance between Human Resources and the manager over and over again. Like, they literally just wanted you to lose all your PTO. Like, that's basically what it sounds like. Like, this guy even admits it. He's like, oh man, someone read the handbook. It's like, yeah, buddy, I did read it. You're an idiot for thinking you could get away with this. So good for you for getting this revenge and for maliciously complying, because these people absolutely deserved it for basically trying to screw all of you over. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for being angry at my maid of honor after she dropped out of her duties and won't be attending my wedding, all because she's going to another wedding on the same weekend just to be a photographer for someone else? Because right now I'm honestly devastated and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 32-year-old female and I'm getting married next June. I sent the save the date cards out in early February and invites were sent out 3 weeks ago. We have a location, we have a venue, and we are figuring that about 200 people will be there. I mean, my fiance does have a large family after all. Now, I asked my best friend, who I will call Caroline, to be my maid of honor. We've been best friends for about 11 years now, and I was the maid of honor at her wedding. I did all the duties and such, and this was 5 years ago. And so when I asked Caroline, she said yes, and was really excited and was all in. We spent a few months planning everything, and it all seemed normal. Now, for a bit of background on Caroline, she has a side gig job of being a wedding photographer. It isn't her main job, and she does it as a bit of extra money to fund her travel lifestyle. She usually blocks the dates of important events where she is busy busy or is on vacation, and I expected her to do the same thing for my wedding. She has a full-time job and doesn't rely on these photo gigs as her main source of income. But if she did, I would have understood. But she constantly says she does this just because she enjoys it and likes the extra money. Well, 2 weeks ago, Caroline told me that someone booked her for my wedding weekend and that she would have to drop out of both the wedding and the wedding party. And when she told me this, I was stunned. I asked her why she didn't block the date, and she said she forgot to. I then asked her to just cancel it and apologize. I mean, it is 7.5 months away, but she told me that she has a policy not to cancel any booked gigs. She said she is still excited to do all the other wedding stuff with me, like trying on dresses, tasting menus, and going to the rehearsal dinner, but I told her that if she didn't want to take one day off of work to support her best friend, then I don't want her in any of the planning process. She apologized for dropping out, but told me that she has a business to run and that she can't just cancel. I told her, well, why didn't she block the date when she got the save the date card? And she said that she thought she did, but apparently didn't. I then told her I didn't feel like talking to her anymore because I was super upset and very angry. Now, this was 2 weeks ago, and she did send me a text message, but I didn't respond. I then told some of my other friends, and some think that she should still be part of the planning process, but others were really upset with her on my behalf, as they were also upset with her actions. Like, I'm really hurt that my best friend won't be by my side as I was by her side, but now I'm rethinking our entire friendship. So am I the jerk here? Because this honestly seems so irrational and I just don't know what to do. Holy crap, you're not out of line. This is so weird, dude. Your friend literally ditched you and said, oh, by the way, I'll be there for rehearsals and stuff, but I'm not gonna show up to the wedding. I can't do that. I care about money more than our friendship. Like, holy crap, dude, what are we doing? The wedding is literally 7 months away. She has plenty of time to be like, oh yeah, I can't do that because I'm going to a friend's wedding, so I'm gonna have to drop out of being a photographer there. But instead, she's trying to be like, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. And it's like, okay, well, if you can't do that, then you can't be part of any of the planning. Like, are you kidding me right now? So no, you're not the jerk. Like, this is really toxic and really stupid. And if I was in your shoes, I would feel the same way because this really does suck. My mom expects me to pay more than 50% towards rent and the bills of the house, even though I am not 50% of the household, putting me in a situation that's going to make me go broke before anything else, because what she's demanding is so irrational and unfair that I just seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to give a bit of backstory about me, I'm a recent graduate and I'm working full-time on a fixed-term contract. I moved back in with my mom for the final year of university, and while I tried to move away a few months ago, I had to put all that on pause due to me being on the verge of a mental breakdown. My situation is a mix of being in a vulnerable situation and having a mother that treats me as a resource rather than an independent human being. She expects money, labor, and time, but nothing is ever good enough. She does not talk and she just demands to control everything. Now, the current situation is that I'm still living with her. I'm babysitting about 6 hours per week as a minimum. I'm paying money towards rent and bills, which I think is 33%, which I really do view as fair, and being expected to fully clean the house up on the weekends. And just to be clear, she doesn't and has not paid for my food ever since I was 16 years old. The household also includes me, my mom, and my sibling, and her fiancé is also here about 3 days per week. Now, 2 days ago, I paid her my share towards rent and bills and all the other stuff, but she decided to demand money again. And this would mean that I would be paying 66% in 1 month, which is absolutely not going to happen. Like, I am not okay with that, and she was not being polite about it at all. I told her that I would give her my share on the same day as last month, but she decided that is not acceptable and instead got very angry and told me that I should move out and that I have 2 weeks. The irony of this situation is that while she came into the room, I was literally sending someone a message about arranging a viewing. The main thing for me is that I think paying towards bills and rent is fair, but I will not go over 50% if I'm not 50% of the household, especially when I provide other sources of assistance that help her save money, and I'm just simply not going to tolerate being spoken to like that. My main concern since I started working is what will happen after I'm unemployed again. I'm not foolish. I mean, I always start the employment search far before I became unemployed because I know how competitive it is and how much time it takes. But she does not see that, nor does she even care. She believes that one can find a job at the snap of a finger. I started work only a month after graduating, and yet she complains that I started late. She is so detached from the lived reality people go through. So what will happen once my contract ends? Well, I know for sure it will not be good. She will still expect money while putting other responsibilities onto me and holding my potential situation over my head. Due to this, I know that I need to move out, and I was already looking for options. If I move out, worst case scenario, I can apply for universal care and struggle on that until I find new work. If I stay, I will be more broke in a toxic environment. I've already been arranging and attending viewings because I've got to get out of here. I just hate this situation. Because of her, nothing is ever good enough. What should I do? Oh man, I absolutely would be moving out of there as quick as possible. You're on the right track. I think you're doing the right thing here because your mom sounds incredibly entitled and very rude. And I know for a fact getting out of there will be absolutely the best thing for you because your mom sounds like a terrible person. Today, my wife confessed that she spent the last 2 months opening up credit cards and maxing them out on online slots, putting me in a situation where she literally is $60,000 in debt. And right now, I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my wife is 21 weeks pregnant and came to me Thursday night saying that she's going to have a panic attack. And it's here that she told me that she maxed out her cards on online gambling slots. Looking at her report, it appears from September to October, there was $20,000 and she had nothing else to spend. So she opened more cards that haven't hit her report yet and maxed them out to the total tune of $60,000. Now, when she first told me, she lied and originally claimed only $30,000 and later came clean that it was actually $60,000. Well, she told me that she can feel the resentment and simply can't take it. So she has packed some things and moved in with her grandma. I never yelled at her, but I did tell her that I was disgusted and disappointed and that I can't believe she did this to her 2 dogs and her soon-to-be son. I told her that she needs to go to her doctor and a therapist, and that's about as far as we went. I don't even understand the chemical imbalance in one's brain to even consider doing something of this nature. I do love and miss her, but I just don't know what to even think right now because this situation is incredibly scary. Okay, well, if this is not a brief view into like the rest of your life, I seriously don't know what is, because holy crap, what do you mean she gambled $60,000 away? You know, $60,000 that she clearly doesn't have. Like, dude, this is some crazy stuff. I really hope you have your finances locked up and you don't share any kind of money together because, dude, she's gonna make you go bankrupt. So truly, I am so sorry you're dealing with this, and hopefully you guys find some kind of solution because this is a mess that I can only imagine having to go through. Am I the jerk for telling my mom's boyfriend that his son is not my responsibility? Because after he tried to drop him off on my lap at the last second while they run off to do anything else, I literally snapped at him and I decided to give him a piece of my mind. And now at this point, my mom is really upset with me and I'm just not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 20-year-old male and my parents divorced when I was 16 years old. And trust me, it was messy. I live with my mom now and her boyfriend, who I will call Mark, as well as Mark's son, who I will call Liam. And for reference, Liam is 11 years old. I'm in my second year of college, which is its own special kind of stress with exams and lots of projects. Now, usually the dynamic is fine. Mark is okay, but he has a habit of assuming I'm a newly acquired babysitter. Liam is a good kid, but wasn't raised properly at all, which is another thing in and of itself. Plus, he's 11 years old. He's energetic, he's loud, and is very impersonal and doesn't understand the concept of personal space yet. The issue happened this past Saturday. I had a massive assignment due on Monday morning, and I was planning on spending the entire weekend at the library on campus. On Saturday morning, as I'm packing my bag, Mark comes to me to let me know that he and my mom are going away and that I need to keep an eye on Liam. Now, I was immediately stressed out, so I told him I can't do it, that I literally have to go to university and focus on my studies. He then waved me off and said it's fine. I should take him along with me to campus and keep him busy on the tablet. But immediately I was like, no, I'm not taking an 11-year-old kid to my university while I need to focus on a big submission. So I said no, trying to be firm, saying that I cannot be responsible for him for the entire day at university. And I asked, okay, well, can he stay at a friend's house or at grandma's place or his mom's? When I said this, Mark's face fell and he looked genuinely annoyed. He told me that it's just one day and that trying to organize stuff with other parents and family would be too much of a hassle, saying that the least I could do was just help out. Well, I couldn't take it honestly, so I snapped. I've been under a lot of pressure for printing assignments and group work, and that was just the last straw. I told him that Liam was his son and not mine. He is not my responsibility. I didn't choose to have a kid when I wasn't ready, and my only obligation is to get my degree and move out. When I said this, they both went silent for a bit, visibly upset, and after a while, Mark just said it's fine and that I shouldn't bother asking them favors in the future. My mom later that day texted me and said that I was disrespectful and hurtful, which I did lose my temper slightly, but I feel like they had no right to try and force Liam as my responsibility so last minute. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm still pretty pissed off. Dude, no, you are not the jerk at all. This is crazy. So you mean to tell me that they can drop this off on you at the last second, but they don't have the common decency of at least letting you know first? Like for me, I'm more than willing to help out where I need to help out, but to have that dropped in my lap at the last second, like that would really piss me off. Especially when I'm literally going through college and I have a huge submission on my plate. Like you mean to tell me that I have to now drop all my plans to figure this crap out? Because the original poster's right, dude. They shouldn't be responsible for this. This is not their kid. Like what's going on right now. So no, you are not the jerk. Your mom's boyfriend is stepping over the line, and he's trying to act like you're somehow obligated to take care of his stupid kid. Because the truth is, you definitely are not, and Mark has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. Today, I outdid my fiance's petty boss by literally canceling his physical therapy appointment with me, all because he wanted to enforce some stupid rule at his workplace, putting me in a fantastic position of giving this guy a taste of his own medicine. Here's how it all went down. So I run a physical therapy clinic, and my fiance is a lawyer. A few months ago at our engagement party, I mentioned to a few of her colleagues that I'm happy to give them a discount if they need to see me for whatever reason, and because of that, 4 of them have become my regulars. Well, one day, one of her partners booked in, and to put it lightly, none of the colleagues or my fiance like him, and after spending an hour with this guy, I understand why. He's very arrogant and condescending, but strangely desperate for approval, but I did remain pleasant with him. After paying, he did mention the discount, but I just said with a smirk, well, it's just for employees. He's been in a few times, and 3 weeks ago, he came in, and the conversation turned into how my day was going. One of the therapists was sick, so I was busier than usual seeing their clients. He then said, oh, well, that must be annoying, and then asked if they needed a medical certificate. I just said no, and I think that's a stupid policy, as I would rather them stay home and not infect the clinic. He then countered saying he wanted to be more strict with that at his office, just to prevent people from slacking off. Well, I ended up getting a rotten cold and eventually gave it to my fiance, and it hit her really hard, and she ended up working from home Friday. She pretty much deteriorated over the weekend and ended up taking Monday off. Well, her boss emailed her this morning saying that she would need a medical certificate, and this is the first time it's ever been enforced. Coincidentally, he had a 2 o'clock appointment with me that day. So I booked my fiance in with her doctor at 2, and I let him know that I have to cancel his appointment because I have to drive her to the doctor. And to be fair, she's got vertigo and is pretty lightheaded. And I would get back to him if I had any availability, but I'm fully booked out for like the next 3 weeks. Well, because of this, he's now messaged both of us saying that the medical isn't necessary. My fiance then said she can't cancel due to late cancellation policy and that it's just rude. But I said it's just best to go anyways because this is kind of one of those things that needs to happen. Okay, honestly, I love this so much because this proves how much of a hypocrite this guy is. Because literally, and someone said this in the comment section, it's all about the rules and principles until it negatively affects him. Because holy crap, this guy only cared about this to try and be a jerk and not because he actually cared about getting some kind of certificate saying like, oh yeah, you're out of work sick and here's proof from a doctor. So good for you for shutting this guy down because he sounds like a real piece of work. And the fact that he was trying to pull this crap, in my opinion, seems a little targeted. And I think this was a nice way of putting him in his place and kind of getting him off his high horse. Today, my friend almost accidentally ended my life, and right now I'm really struggling to figure out how I can move forward or if we can ever be friends ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is a hard thing to talk about because it only happened like a week ago. My family owns a crossbow that we usually shoot at a target on our property, and while my father got it, it is considered to be mine for use. I am quite skilled with a crossbow, and I have fired it innumerable times, and I am very careful with it. It's not a weapon meant to end someone's life, but it's not a toy, and shooting it in a critical place could be lethal. It didn't shoot actual arrows, but more like pencil-sized darts that are relatively just like sharp metal tips. Now, I had brought friends over before, including my best friend, to shoot at the target with me before with no issue. And this is because I very clearly explained that it isn't a toy, and that we definitely need to exercise caution. Well, one day my friend called me up and asked if we could shoot the crossbow, and unfortunately, I said yes. In retrospect, the warning signs were there from the very start, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened that day. He showed up shortly after calling, and I was there set up and ready for him. From the start, he wanted to begin shooting the target, but I slowed him down and I went over the protocol of how to fire it and how to put the safety on. But he kept giving me quick responses of how he remembered how to do it. But still, I gave him the demonstration myself. Now, we had done this before, so it wasn't a complete red flag that he wanted to speed through the instructions, but I really wish my judgment was better. He then fired it off a few times and hit the target with no issue, but then I went to grab more darts from the dart box, which was behind the direction of the target, which essentially is on the completely opposite end of the firing line. Now, the following sequences all happened within seconds. I felt a sharp thud hit my head and my vision go black for a moment, but there was no pain. I mean, I remember looking at my friend with the crossbow in hand and wide-eyed as a deer. I then began to scream as I instinctively pulled a pencil-sized dart from my head. And I have to say, I may have been more in control than he was, especially since I was bleeding from the head, because this guy was frozen in shock. So I I had to yell at him to call the police, which he thankfully did. My adrenaline was through the roof, and I didn't actually feel the injury, but I knew that this was really bad. Very quickly, both the police and medics showed up on the scene, and I was fully lucid, and I understood that I hadn't sustained a serious injury. However, the place where I was hit was like an inch between my eye and the temple. I then told the police it wasn't intentional, as my friend could barely speak out of shock, and although I went to the hospital, I was very quickly let out. It's been about a week since all this happened, and my friend called to ask if I was okay at the time that I was in the hospital, but seriously, we haven't talked ever since then. There was so much dangerous stupidity from him that I can't understand how he had his safety off and had turned away from the target, faced me, and then shot. So seriously, can I ever be this guy's friend again? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, I gotta be honest right now. I'm gonna keep this short and simple. No, you should never be this guy's friend ever again. He's an idiot for what he did, and he almost ended your life, dude. Like, this is not a good friend, and I'm really surprised he didn't press charges. I totally understand it was an accident and all that other garbage, but seriously, this guy was negligent, and he absolutely should have gotten in trouble in my opinion. So hopefully you're okay, and hopefully things work out, because this could have been really bad. My entitled manager ignores several health code violations that I pointed out to him, choosing instead to make my life a living nightmare after I tried to do the right thing and point them out in the first place. But thankfully, karma came back for my general manager in a fantastic way, as this guy was fired on the spot by corporate for all the violations that he ignored, as well as the time theft he committed on his employees. And I've never been happier to watch someone get taken down in my life. Here's what happened. So around the beginning of the pandemic, I landed a job at a well-known US fast food chain. The general manager was a tall and stocky bald guy. He really liked my interview, so from the very beginning, he told me that he hired me with the intention of making me a manager someday soon. So I busted my butt every single day, proving my worth, often doing the work of a full staff all by myself. I worked this hard because my previous job had just laid me off due to the effects of the pandemic on the hospitality industry, and so I was just happy to have a job. In order to become a manager, you had to take a Serve Safe exam. Usually, you would get promoted whether or not you passed the exam, but per the state law, there was always to be a Serve Safe certified manager on duty at all shifts. Given that there were so few of us, 3 managers in total, including my general manager, that certificate was absolutely invaluable. But I'm getting ahead of myself. One day in the middle of my shift, the general manager approaches me with a book to study for my certification. I'm excited because I know that this means a promotion and a significant pay raise. I study this book like my life depends on it, with every moment that I get throughout the day spent in the book. I'm a quick study, and I progress rather well through the book. But there is one major issue. The more that I read, the more I discover that there were so many health violations happening at the workplace. A lot of these fast food workers aren't being paid enough to care about cleanliness, and most places will be okay with the appearance of cleanliness. I mean, there was improper food storage, cross-contamination, changing the dates on expired products, just to name a few. We even had minors working in the kitchen. I decided to approach the general manager about my concerns, hoping that we could get to work on fixing a few things. Well, instead, I met with him snarling back at me. He says to me, "Just do what I say." And when he said this, I was completely shocked. And as a result, he begins to make my life absolutely miserable. He would intentionally short-staff the shifts that I worked because he knew that I wouldn't complain about doing extra work. And then when our numbers suffered, because there was literally 3 of us doing the work of 8 people, he would bark at me at the beginning of the next shift in the presence of my coworkers. He went in deep, calling me worthless and all types of names just to degrade me. He would normally threaten my job about 2 to 3 times during a shift. I actually began to gaslight myself into believing that I was in the wrong and to just work harder. It didn't really click that I wasn't doing anything wrong until one day when I stopped by during the morning shift. Now, typically I work the nights, so I just so happened to be checking in on something. It's right then that I noticed the morning manager clocked in, then they go back outside to smoke and have breakfast. I was so shocked because no one said anything. I approached one of the morning guys that I knew I could trust and asked him if this was a normal occurrence. He said yes, along with so many other things that this female manager got away with that I would probably be fired for on the spot. During this entire fiasco, after many breakdowns where I would go to the freezer to cry, I finally did it. I passed the Serve Safe exam. I was very proud of myself. Well, if my life was miserable before, I simply don't have the words to begin to describe what my life became after I got certified. Apparently, and I have no way of verifying this, the general manager became threatened
threatened by me and intensified my misery. Now, I forgot to mention that in an attempt to save money so his numbers would look good, he would literally make some workers work days for free. Now, let me explain. I noticed that some employees would work double 5 days a week and get paid the exact same as the workers who work normal hours. People, listen to me. Hard work is rarely, if at all, rewarded in the United States. This man would manipulate the time clocks to essentially force some of the more gullible employees to work overtime and only get paid for 40 hours. I kid you not. There was this young girl fresh out of high school who would somehow manage to work 70 plus hours a week and only get paid for 40, and she somehow thought that this was normal. But here's the kicker. While he was manipulating the clocks against some of these kids, he would always be on the clock even when he'd leave for the day. I mean, one day I had the audacity to clock him out, all because, he wasn't at work, and this man gave me the tongue lashing of a lifetime next time he saw me. Now, here comes the karma, and trust me, it was so sweet. The thing about cosmic justice is that it has a sense of humor and irony. I specifically remember that in one of my general manager's tirades, he would tell me that I would be coming in here as just a customer and not an employee at some point. And please keep this in mind because this will be important for later. So, a random Tuesday morning, I'm still recovering from last night's shift when I get a phone call from one of the morning employees. She can barely get a word out in utter shock, but I made out what she was trying to say. She said on the phone, "They just fired the general manager." I let out this maniacal laugh that I'm sure my entire neighborhood could hear. I laughed to the point of crying. So apparently, the store was doing so bad that it caught corporate's attention. They sent a couple guys to do an audit, and get this, they pointed out every violation that I had previously pointed out to the general manager. It was so bad that they fired him on the spot. The corporate guys became our acting general manager. The store had to be shut down for a couple of days just to fix everything. And get this, remember how the general manager said that I would one day come in the store as a customer and not as an employee? Well, guess who ended up coming in to order food a week after being fired? I almost snapped my ankle running to the front to serve him with a smile. To make matters worse, his wife actually left him after he was fired. Apparently, he was cheating on her with a morning shift manager. So it finally made sense now how she just got away with everything. We only found out because she used his phone to text the work group chat, exposing the affair to literally everybody. It felt great to be validated and vindicated for everything I pointed out. Over the next couple of weeks, we went through a couple of general managers from neighboring stores who came in to fill in. Eventually, things got way better, and I left the job a few months later for health reasons and got a better job that paid twice what I was making back there. And it's honestly just so satisfying to watch the cosmic justice of karma drop down directly onto my former general manager. Yeah, your former boss is a complete idiot. Seriously, why would you not want to fix any of the health code violations in your store? Like, did he really think that nobody was going to inspect him? Like, I'm pretty sure it's a normal thing for a health code inspector to come along and look at your store. And don't even get me started on the fact that he was taking advantage of his staff. Like, seriously, this guy is a scumbag. He literally would have people work, 70 hours a week, and then only log them, 40 hours a week just to try and take advantage of them? That is such an awful business practice, and seriously, I can't believe he got away with that for so long. I mean, you really did try to warn this guy. You tried to point out things that would make the store a better place. And you know what? You worked incredibly hard. You tried to prove your worth and show him that yes, you can get it done, and you can be trusted to be a manager. But just like all jobs with corrupt bosses, this guy clearly had ulterior motives. Not to mention the fact that he was having an affair with someone you worked with. Like, just imagine if you did become a manager and then you would have to deal with that on a daily basis. Like, it's probably better that this guy never promoted you. But honestly, through it all, good for you for standing your ground and at least trying to do the right thing. Because this guy was a complete idiot. And if he knew what was good for him, he would have made those changes if he actually valued his job. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend said that I'm being unreasonable for refusing to pay 50% of the utility bill after it increased. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I live in the UK with my partner, and for most bills we pay 50-50. Now, there are some exceptions. For example, if one person wants something that the other person doesn't, then that person pays. So I pay monthly for a Wi-Fi booster and some streaming services that my girlfriend uses but doesn't necessarily need. As it's getting colder, we've started using the basic heating more often. I barely use it since I'm not too cold, but my girlfriend has been starting to put it on more for most of the day. I'll be sat in the apartment too hot, asking to turn it off or down, but she'll refuse. If it was up to me, we'd have used it maybe twice in the last 6 weeks, but because of my girlfriend, it's on most of the time. We pay what we use for our utilities instead of a set direct debit, and we got the bill this month, and it was over £65 more than usual due to the heating. I showed the bill to my girlfriend, and she said there's nothing we could have done to get it lower. Well, I told her that I didn't really want to be paying the extra since it's only her using it, and she's the one who refuses to consider turning it off when I ask. She disagreed and said we should be splitting it since we're both benefiting from it. But I pointed out it's not a benefit for me because I'm too hot and I don't actually want it on. She said we're supposed to be a team, but I just mentioned that if that were true, she would listen to me when I mentioned turning it off or turning it down, but she only wants to have things her way. She said I was being unreasonable and that I should pay my half, but I really don't think that I should. So honestly, I'm now at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, this is like super inappropriate, but not from the original poster's girlfriend. I really think the original poster is being super selfish. He is trying to nickel and dime his girlfriend in a way that is so inappropriate. This guy is seriously getting upset over what, $65 on the heating bill? This guy does know that winter exists, right? So sometimes when it's cold in the house, you've got to turn on your heat. And for you to be like, oh, I don't get any benefit from this, but it's like, what are you talking about? You live in the same house. Like, of course you're benefiting from this, even if you don't like it. It's also super inappropriate how the original poster like twisted the words of his girlfriend. She said, hey, we're supposed to be a team. Why can you not help me with this? But in reality, he doesn't want this to be a team. He wants this to be a dictatorship. This guy would rather have his girlfriend listen to everything he says and do things his way instead of letting his girlfriend, I don't know, have free will and choice. I don't know, this just comes off as super entitled and really sketchy in my opinion. And I'm not saying that the girlfriend isn't also nickel and diming the original poster. Like, there might be things going on that would probably be like super obnoxious that the girlfriend is doing in this situation, but we probably don't have enough info to try and get some kind of like fair assessment. But honestly, from what we know, it really seems like the original poster is being super selfish. And in my opinion, if $65 is gonna make or break your relationship, then I really think you've got bigger problems than the heating bill. Am I the jerk for banning my mother from my wedding after the way she's been talking about my future husband? Here's what happened. I started seeing my boyfriend 5 years ago, soon after I moved out of my mom's house. It took about a year before I introduced them, and as soon as I did, my mom made her disapproval very obvious. She suggested he wasn't good enough for me because of his job title, his income, and education level. She said he was weird and that I should be with someone normal to make me more normal. She said she wasted her money putting me through college because I didn't meet my future husband there like she did. Gradually, she laid off all the negative comments and seemed to finally accept him. I didn't think anything of it when I invited her to our wedding because I thought everybody invites their mom to their wedding. She was supposed to even walk me down the aisle since my dad passed away a few years ago. Then yesterday, I was at my mom's house with no one else there. She said to me, make sure he has a nice suit so we can pretend like you're going to marry a successful man. Then she started laughing hysterically at her own joke. I said to her, if you don't like who I'm getting married to, then don't come to my wedding. Then her mood suddenly changed and she yelled at me. She said, that is no way to talk to your mother. Well, I ran out of there in tears. I then went on to think about how my mom has talked about my fiancé. I realized that nothing she could say to me now would make me comfortable with her at my wedding. We would have to change a few plans last minute, but I would be much happier without her there at this point. So I texted her, and I told her my decision was final and she was not coming. My mom says I'm overreacting to a harmless joke, and that the whole family will be shocked by my decision, and she will be humiliated. She said if I didn't want her there, then I should have told her from the start, and that there's no way I was changing my mind over that one joke. So I need to know, am I overreacting by making such a drastic decision at the last minute? Am I being too harsh on my mom? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're overreacting in this regard. Your mom is being very toxic towards your fiancé, and it seems like it's been like this from the beginning. Like, she seriously just puts him down at the drop of a hat. She doesn't like his job or how much money he makes. She doesn't like his education level. It honestly seems like she doesn't like this guy, and he will never be able to impress this lady pretty much ever. And that's not fair for you or your fiancé. I mean, imagine this from your fiancé's point of view. He is already starting at such a low point. All all because of what your mother was saying about him. Like honestly, who would want that kind of energy on their special day? I know if I was in your shoes and my mother was acting like that, I would probably go the same route as well. I mean, you thought everything was fine. You thought she was going to act normal at the wedding ceremony and she was going to be somewhat supportive in some kind of way, but it's obvious she wants to be toxic. And guess what? If she wants to be toxic, then that behavior can absolutely be rewarded with her being uninvited. Like she has no one to blame except for herself. And in my opinion, it's a good thing to keep her out of this wedding. So no, obviously you are not the jerk. All of these jokes that your mom was trying to pass off in some kind of like passive-aggressive manner are not jokes at all in my opinion. But instead, those are her actual thoughts about your future husband, and personally, I would not want to put up with that on my wedding day in the slightest. Today, I messed up by getting fired from my job, and now I'm concerned about how I'm going to pay for my rent, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I want to start off by saying that this story has been a situation for about a month now, and also, it has been 3 years in the making. But this has all started before I got this job. I was running out of savings that I got from a previous job and was assisting a medical call center that ended up liking me to the point where they recommended me to some leads who were working in the same building. So after sending an application and landing an interview, I got a job as a medical biller for some medical consultants. Now, a thing about me is that I sometimes would talk to myself if I'm under stress, trying to figure out if I did something wrong, or in this case, if I have a random scenario in my head and would act as if I was in that situation. And so I had this scenario where I was given something confidential or important, let's say a USB with a patient's information for an example. And in that scenario, I would pretty much refuse to take on that task because of how often I lose or misplace my own stuff, as well as just completely forget them. So fast forward about 3 months later, and I've been tasked with printing out some patient and faculty documents in order to send them out to the post office. But there were some times that some prints didn't come out correctly, or I would want some clarification on it, so I would put those to the side and get to them later, only to then completely forget about them. And so on 2 separate occasions within that month, people were being moved around to different cubicles and offices, myself included. So on the second relocation, something came up. I completely forgot a patient document where I was previously working at that was now very late, and it was about a week late. And then soon after, I come to find out that I've done that already at my first desk with another one, and this was almost a month late for that one. So when the second incident occurred, my boss pretty much told me that if it happened again, I would be fired. So I've completely forgotten about a patient's information twice, all within 1 month. And my brain knew something like this was going to happen before I even got started, which honestly is not a lot of fun. So after all that happened, I knew that I wasn't gonna make it for long, but I had responsibility, so I stuck around despite it. So throughout the years, I've dealt with the following: a failure to meet a deadline because I thought I had 30 days instead of 28. I've had multiple times where either the bus taking me to work showed a minute early, or I'd see it pass by me, or when I got off work, I would sometimes wait 2 to 3 minutes, all the way up to 2 hours, only for 3 buses to show up all at once. At that point, I would just walk all the way home, which would take me about 45 minutes to an hour. I also had friction with my roommate and sister to the point that I was trying everything in my power to not start a fist fight. A new rule was then implemented to where they've banned using headphones, so if I want to listen to music, I had to use a speaker at a certain volume. A few times at work, I wouldn't be able to finish up everything, so I would clock out and stay over to finish up on my own time, which they absolutely didn't like. And on 2 separate occasions, I've overslept and I've been an hour late to work. There was also a coworker who I was working with that left to become a realtor, but before that, he dumped about 250 statements on me. So now, coming to this year, things were looking up. I've moved to another apartment that made it where I could just walk to work while my sister moved to another state. And I let my mom in because she got recently kicked out of my older sister's house and was also working at home. But on the other hand, at this point, I was straight up miserable. I couldn't have my headphones in, so I couldn't focus for anything. I'm not exactly fully awake since I pretty much hate waking up in the morning, and my head was like screaming. I couldn't do anything to quell the noise. So you might be wondering, what ended up getting me canned in the first place? Well, I forgot to clock back in from lunch 4 times within a month. So I ended up getting fired, and I had to break the news to my family, and they understood the situation, and my mother told me to take a break, file for unemployment, and start looking for work, which I did. But then, recently, I found out that I'm getting help from unemployment. And shortly after that, my mom's dad passed away, and now she is being burdened with the funeral cost since she's the only descendant still alive. And I also didn't save up anything, so I'll probably have barely enough for the upcoming rent, basically making me broke. So now I maybe have 1 to 2 months to get another job, or I'm gonna be out of my apartment. And at this point, I really hate my life, and I'm seriously not sure what to do. Okay, take this with a grain of salt, but it really seems like the original poster has ADHD of some kind. And I'm not a doctor or anything like that, I'm speaking purely from personal experience, because I myself have ADHD, and let me tell you something, I've experienced everything the original poster's talking about. I've had trouble getting up in the morning, I've had trouble focusing at work, I've had trouble getting things done in my life, if not just forgetting things altogether at work or in my house. Like seriously, I understand where you're coming from. And for me, going to a doctor and figuring out exactly what's going on inside my brain made a massive difference in my personal, private, and professional life. And again, I'm not a doctor, but honestly, it really reflects on my own experience in dealing with ADHD. So while this situation does suck, there's a very good chance, just based off of personal experience, that there might be something else going on here that the original poster is just not accounting for. It's either that or they just suck at planning. Like it really seems like they're not being forward thinking with their future, they're not saving up money, they're not doing what they need to do to get to work on time or to clock in and out on time. Like if you're really that forgetful and this isn't some kind of like attention problem or anything like that, then in my opinion, I think maybe using your phone as like a reminder, or at least as some kind of like alert to remind you, hey, I need to clock in and out, or even check your time at work or like anything like that, I think that might make a big difference in your future job. Because here's the thing, I think they're completely right to fire you. I know that sounds really bad, but you've forgotten to do a lot of things, and at this point, they've probably given you like every opportunity in the book to straighten out your behavior and figure this out. So yes, you did get fired, but at least you can move forward and find a better job. Because this honestly is not the end of the road when it comes to working. And I think with this future job, you can have a fresh start and try and do things differently. An entitled Karen tries to steal a Pokemon plushie that I just purchased, claiming that she bought it for her daughter and that if I don't hand it over, she was gonna have me arrested. And I'm seriously blown away by this entitled Karen. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Okay, so this happened last week and I'm still wondering how someone could be so entitled and try and take anything that they want. For a bit of backstory, I love shopping at charity shops, and I do so when I have some free time. You can find some amazing items for very cheap. I had just been in one of the shops when I noticed a little girl around the age of 5 pointing to me and yelling, "Mommy, she has a Pokemon plush, it's so cute." Now the Pokemon plush in question was the Pokemon by the name of Eevee, and it looks like a tan colored fox with long ears and a tail. I just smiled at this and continued on my way, only to then be stopped by the mother, who looks to be in her 40s, covered in makeup so thick she could join a circus and in high-heeled shoes. She looks at me and says, "Excuse me, my little girl would like that toy you have. Be a sweetie and go ahead and give it to her." Now when she said this, I was shocked for a second. I then said to her, "I'm sorry, but I got it for me." I then turn to the little girl and I say, "I love this Pokemon too." The girl just nods and smiles, but this entitled Karen of a mother carries on. She says to me, "Give me the toy or you'll be sorry." I then just walk off, only to feel a very large tug on my bag and the woman grabbing the tail part of the Pokemon. I immediately yell at her and I say, "What are you doing?" And this is all while she's grabbing at the ears of the Pokemon plushie. So there I am, playing tug of war in the middle of the shopping center while a crowd of people are watching. The little girl is screaming out, "Leave her alone, mommy." It's not long until a security guard walks up and asks what the problem was. This entitled Karen then does something that honestly blew my mind. She starts screaming out, "She stole my daughter's toy and I want her arrested." And when I heard this, I was honestly in complete shock. I say to her, "That is not true and I can prove it." And as I yell back, more and more people are starting to join the crowd around us. The little girl screams out and says, "Mommy, please don't lie. You're pulling off the Pokemon's tail. Please don't hurt it." Eventually, the guard takes the toy from both of us. The security guard tells everybody to calm down and then turns to me, and he asks me if I have any proof that this does indeed belong to me. So that's when I pull out the receipt. I say to him that it shows the price I paid, the shop name, and there's a tag on the toy that matches everything. The security guard takes a look at both, gives a nod, and says, "Yep, we have a match." Now, you would think that the Karen would have bolted at this point, but no, we didn't have that kind of luck. Instead, she continues to scream and wail. She says, "They match because she stole the bag. She is a thief. I want her arrested." And as she's screaming this, literally spit is flying from her mouth. Now, at this point, I feel sorry for the little girl who keeps tugging at her mom, literally saying to her that she wants wants to go home. And honestly, this is getting embarrassing and I kind of want to go home too. The guard then radios into the camera center. He says that we have a situation and then he asks them to take a look and tell him what they saw. Now at this point, the Karen goes Snow White. I've never seen someone change colors so fast, but it's not long before a response comes back. The security guard says, "Oh, I see," and then hands the toy back to me. He says to me, "I'm sorry for the trouble and I'll get this sorted out." Now at this point, the entitled Karen actually tries to make a break for it, but the crowd that had gathered actually stopped her tracks. The security guard leads her away with a little girl behind them. I end up thanking them and have a few people ask if I'm okay or if I want a drink, but I politely say I'm fine and I say thank you right as the crowd begins to break up. After this, I immediately head home, wondering what on earth just happened and feeling sorry for the little girl. Now, as for the Pokemon plushie, it had a rip where the tail meets the body, but thankfully I was able to sew it up and place a ribbon bow where the fabric was ripping. But honestly, I just can't believe the entitlement of this entitled Karen. That is such an awful thing to try and do to somebody. Here you are just buying a Pokemon plushie that you really like, and then this crazy lady comes out of nowhere and tries to be like, "Yeah, you stole that from me. Give it back right now." Like, that is honestly such a stretch, it's not even funny. And it's also such an unreasonable attempt to try and steal from somebody. Like, the original poster has a receipt, and there's also probably cameras all over the place at the place you went to go shopping. So for this weird, crazy mom to walk up and be like, "Yeah, that's mine, you should give it to me," that is so uncalled for, and I really hope she got in trouble because of this. Because that kind of behavior absolutely should not go unpunished. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my cousin that I didn't get a graduation present? Because right now, my mom is furious with me, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I recently graduated from university with honors. I'm not from the United States, and I'm attending university for free with a scholarship, which took care of my housing and food situation. The country I'm from has really good deals for student dorms, and I was able to stay at a dorm for the entirety of my studies. I don't own a car either, as I work from home, and this will be important later on. I landed a stable job right after university, and I'm attending what you would call in the United States as grad school. My parents weren't really supportive during my studies. They expressed zero interest in attending my graduation or conferences where I presented my work. Well, yesterday I visited my uncle. He took his children to Paris for a holiday, and they had an absolute blast. So I went over to see the photos and videos and just to hear about how it all went. My cousin, who's 8 years old, asked me if I've ever been to Paris, to which I told her no, but it is on my list. She asked me why I never went to Paris, and I told her I never had the opportunity to. Now, my university friend, who's 24 years old, was in Paris at the same time as my uncle and cousins, and they met by chance at a restaurant. My uncle knows my friend, and he mentioned that he saw them in Paris. For reference, my uncle is an interior designer, and he designed my friend's mom's house after I introduced them. I remembered he was gifted a trip to Paris and London as a graduation gift from his parents, and my uncle mentioned that my friend told him so. I remembered my friend telling me about that holiday, and I verified to my uncle that was probably his graduation present. And then my cousin asked what I got as a graduation present. Now, as you all probably have guessed by now, I got absolutely nothing. I'm absolutely not entitled to anything, but for context, my younger sister, who's 19, got into university this year, and my parents gifted her roughly $900 worth of gifts, including shoes and jewelry. I told my cousin I got myself a pair of shoes I really wanted for graduation, and from my first real paycheck, and my boyfriend gifted me a notebook. My cousin looked really sad and told me that's really not enough for something as big as a graduation. My uncle looked really upset too, and I just switched over to another topic. Well, fast forward to this morning, and I got an angry call from my mother. She called me an ungrateful brat for demanding a gift for doing what was required of me to do, and asked if I wanted a participation trophy as well. She also mentioned that my uncle suggested they buy me a car, which is something I never wished for or even expressed in the slightest. She then said if I wanted a car, I should work for it, which is a sentiment I completely agree with. Eventually, I just hung up because I didn't have it in me to try and deal with her. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for telling the truth? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. You didn't do a single thing wrong. For starters, I completely agree with you. You don't have to get something just because you graduated, and you were not expecting anything. Like, it really seems like you were just waiting in the sidelines and saying, okay, whatever, I don't really care. It's not that big of of a deal and I don't care if I get anything from my family, despite the fact that your family clearly favors your younger sister. But with all that in mind, the fact that your mom called you up and screamed at you, in my opinion, is the funniest aspect of this entire story. She didn't yell at you to reprimand you for being ungrateful. She yelled at you because you exposed the truth about her. She did nothing to celebrate your graduation. Like, that's really what's going on here in my opinion. She clearly feels guilty, and she feels bad that now her uncle knows the truth about her situation. And that, in my opinion, is the best part about this. This is someone screaming because they're guilty, not because they're angry about something you didn't ask for. And on that note, your uncle is really stupid for even suggesting that you would want a car. Like, that was most definitely not a part of the conversation, and it's inappropriate for him to basically speak for you like that. But with all things considered, I don't think you did anything wrong. It's not like you were going to your uncle and being like, wow, I can't believe I didn't get anything for graduation. You were literally just answering an 8-year-old's question. Like, seriously, why would your mom freak out like that if she didn't have some kind of like underlying guilt about the way she treated you? Because clearly she plays favorites towards your sister. And now, in a roundabout way, you have exposed that to the rest of the family. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. An entitled jerk gets put in his place after he picks a fight with a wrong person. And I've honestly never been happier to watch someone get taken down in my life. Here's what happened. So I work in IT, and many moons ago, early in my career, I worked as a call center support rep for an internet service provider, and we'll just call that the ISP. Now, we are no strangers to calls from angry customers, but we had one within a few months of my time there that I still talk about to this day. We will call this guy Jerkface. Jerkface became very well known in the office as he would call in and rage for no reason at us, sometimes never even getting to what his actual problem is. To give you an idea of how infamous this guy was, at one point within a few nights, he called in and was hung up on by over 24 different representatives because of how much of a total jerk he is. The one time that I got him, he opted to cuss me out seemingly every other word. After trying my best to help and giving him several warnings to not use that kind of language, I too got to hang up on him and join the club of other people who have hung up on Jerkface. But a few representatives later, and he is where our story begins. He called back in to rage and wound up talking to another one of my coworkers, who we will call Joe. Joe is not his real name. When Joe answered the call, Jerkface, as always, preferred to cut him off and rant about how he's been on hold forever. He had a knack for vastly over-exaggerating the amount of time he was waiting. For example, when I talked to him, he had told me that he had been waiting on hold for about 5 hours, but our phone queue showed he had been waiting for only 5 minutes. I don't know every detail of what was said on Joe's call with Jerkface, but there are a few highlights that I can share with you that Joe had told me about afterwards. The first is that Jerkface made a vague threat towards Joe as he said the following: "How would you like to live to see tomorrow?" Now, clearly in customer service, it is common sense that you don't threaten customers back in cases like this, but Joe's response was pretty smooth. Joe is a veteran, and you could tell looking at him as he had the build of someone who was in the military. He very calmly responded to Jerkface. He said, "Sir, even if you did come after me, I'm a veteran. I could put a world of hurt on you 5 ways from Sunday." Jerkface then immediately started backpedaling. He said, "Well, I didn't mean it like that." But it then begs the question, in what way did you mean it? Generally, when someone says something like that, you can only interpret that in the manner that Joe did. The kicker of this call, however, came towards the end, as Jerkface started ranting about how ISP's employees should be forced to work 24/7 with no breaks and no time off at all, claiming that he works constantly with no breaks. Joe decided to call his bluff on this and asked him, "So what you're telling me is that you don't take any breaks at all?" With Jerkface responding by saying nope. My coworker then says, "Not even to use the bathroom or get a snack?" To which Jerkface responded by again saying the word nope. At this point, Joe decided to give the guy a break, as the next thing he said to Jerkface was absolutely priceless. Joe told the guy the following: "Okay, well, I'll tell you what I can do. I can schedule a technician to come out to your home and look at your service, and when he gets there, you and the tech can share a Twinkie." When Joe told me this, I laughed hysterically, as I had never heard of anyone in customer service responding like that. The story of this call was shared around for a while, and I still share it with people today as an example of how not to be a jerk when dealing with customer service people. Ultimately, Jerkface wound up talking to the manager several levels up, and he was told that if he continued to call and harass any of us any further, his services would be terminated immediately, and we would refuse to ever service his home ever again. Well, we never heard from him again, but it honestly makes me wonder if he ever did get that Twinkie. Yeah, it's so disappointing when you have to deal with customers who act like this. This guy clearly called into this place just to scream at these workers. It didn't seem like he had any kind of problem going on, but instead he was just looking for a fight. And it's really funny that he ran into the one worker who just simply wasn't going to take it any longer. Like, this guy absolutely had it coming. The jerk face in this situation was so out of line, it's not even funny. I mean, I'm kind of surprised that it took this long just to get the higher-ups involved. So I think it's really cool that Joe was up for the task of putting this guy in their place. He was simply being so obnoxious and so uncalled for, and there's no reason he should have the right to talk to people in the way that he did. Today, I messed up by dumping a year-old grudge on the wrong person, and now I feel really stupid and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I first want to start off by saying that every name in the following story is fake. So there is a decent amount of context that I need to explain. The three main people in this story are Mary, who got me into a friend group, Sarah, the problematic person who led the group, and Beth, who's one of Sarah's friends. We're all in our late 20s and early 30s. Near the end of 2021, I became part of a Discord friend group that started with a new friend of mine, namely Mary, as well as her friend Sarah. Mary and Sarah created the server together, but eventually had a falling out, and Mary left the group. I stayed in, but Sarah had a penchant for drama and immature behavior that led to a lot of conflicts, both involving me and involving other people in the server. She regularly pushed physical boundaries with people when she or anybody else was drunk. She tried to get my then girlfriend to hook up with her when I wasn't around, and did a series of other inappropriate things that made me and other people incredibly uncomfortable. Some of these things I experienced firsthand, and some of it I saw from the outside looking in, but there were countless other examples from firsthand witnesses. I mean, some of these things would make your skin crawl. Eventually, after being in the group for about a year, there was an incident that made me realize that nobody in the group would confront her when she did things like this. So I effectively ghosted the server. I stopped talking there and instead tried talking to the half dozen or so people I was closest to in my DMs, but most either didn't respond or indicated that they would only talk in the server, which I was eventually removed from. Losing all these friends at once really hurt, and for a few months, I often thought about what I would say to Sarah if I ever saw her again. In my head, I had a list of the worst things she's done to me and the group. Well, I eventually realized that this wasn't a healthy way to keep thinking about things, so I stopped thinking about it and became a lot happier. A short while later, I ran into Mary at a party, who is the original friend who got me into the group. We started hanging out as friends again for the past couple of months. No Discord or anything like that, and it was honestly really nice. But then, last night at Mary's birthday party, I was caught off guard to see Beth, one of Sarah's best friends from the server. I hadn't seen someone from the server in a while, and while I was still drunk, I had a flood of negative feelings, memories, and anxiety completely wash over me for a bit. But I decided it was best to just talk to other people. But then, on the way home, a group of the partygoers all traveled together on the subway, including myself and Beth. Eventually, it was only myself and her left on the train, and I decided, very poorly mind you, that I should finally talk to her. It started as an attempt at explaining why I was avoiding her or just being awkward tonight, and quickly spiraled into a bad time. I told her I had a weird feeling when I saw her, remembering the friends from the server that I had lost, with her included, even though we weren't that close. I asked if she was still in Sarah's server, and when she said yes, I asked if Sarah was acting any better. Beth asked me what I meant, and my drunk idiot brain decided to dump about half of the list of awful things it had stored up there for about the year prior. Now, Beth was immediately taken aback and rebuffed several of my points, specifically ones that happened to other people that I may have only heard about in passing. Every story was a first-hand witness who described their involvement and discomfort to me, but I decided to pivot to just my own accounts. She seemed surprised to hear about some of the things Sarah had done specifically to me, but I could tell I definitely lost the point of the conversation and was basically just having an impromptu meltdown over repressed memories to this person who didn't want to hear it. In the end, I apologized and said I was drunk and clearly just still very hurt over what happened. I told her losing so many friends at once was really hard on me, and I assumed Sarah and people's allegiance to her and the server were the reason I wasn't hearing from anybody. A half dozen other people had left the server over the same time period due to their own falling outs with Sarah, and they were ghosted as well. Beth told me that she didn't know why people weren't talking to me, me and that I should ask them, which I then pointed out that I can't since none of them will respond to me. It felt like a slightly improved tone for the conversation by this point. I mean, it was still a mess, but it was definitely less antagonistic. Beth then had to get off the train suddenly, all with a rushed farewell from the both of us. So that's honestly how I messed up today. I probably won't hear anything directly from any of the old server mates, but I imagine this incident will wrap its way through the gossip train all the way back to me soon enough. Yeah, I can definitely understand where you're coming from, and I can see how this is a massive mess up. For starters, Discord can honestly be such an obnoxious place. Like, don't get me wrong, it's great to hang out with people in chat and all this other stuff, but I have found so often that Discord drama can happen over the dumbest things. And if your friend group isn't strong enough, then suddenly you're gonna have some kind of weird falling out. And that, in my opinion, is already stressful enough. But the fact that one of the main members of that server not only left that server, but has decided not to deal with Sarah any longer should be proof enough that Sarah is toxic, and that she clearly has problems that nobody seems to be brave enough to say anything about. And trust me, I get that. She's one of the people who created the server. It is technically her space, so it kind of makes sense as to why nobody's gonna step in and be like, wait, you need to stop acting this way. And I mean, so many people have already left that server and they've decided, you know what, Sarah is not worth my time. But more to the point, I really think it was a bad idea for the original poster to dump all that baggage on Beth. She's probably sitting there like, wow, what is this guy talking about? I have nothing to do with this and I don't want to get involved. And here you are dumping all this weird emotional drama on me as if I'm your therapist. Like, I can definitely see how that would be really weird and kind of awkward, especially when you don't have all the stories right. I mean, Beth very clearly spent some time correcting the original poster on many points that they were clearly getting wrong. But here's the part that really bothers me the most. It's not necessarily anything that the original poster did. Yes, they probably should have held that in and shared that with anybody else, but it's the fact that Beth wanted to sit there and act like Sarah hasn't done all this weird toxic garbage. Like, even with all the weird things that Sarah has done and all the toxic things she's done and said to other people, even with all that out in the open, this Beth lady is still willing to defend Sarah in a roundabout way. Like, how can you seriously at that point not take some kind of like step back away from the Discord server and be like, wait a minute, maybe Sarah really is toxic. Maybe she is the problem in this situation. I don't know, it just seems really silly in my opinion to sit there and allow this original poster to say all these weird things about Sarah and not even once coming down to the ground floor and seeing where the original poster's coming from. So yes, you did mess up, but I really think you got out of a really toxic friend group because none of these other people have ever sent you a DM back. And that, in my opinion, is a clear sign that these are no longer real life friends, but instead they're more like internet acquaintances, which in my opinion, I think most people in any online interaction would definitely fall under that category. An entitled jerk destroys my Nintendo console in a fit of rage, but after I save up enough money to buy a new console for myself, this jerk steals it for himself and tries to use it without my permission. And I'm honestly so glad I don't live in that environment any longer. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of backstory, this happened about 4 to 5 years ago when I was living in a group home under CPS care in Australia. So I apologize if anything appears to be weird or if the details are left out. I'm also posting this just to vent, as thinking about this event still gives me anxiety. So anyways, I have been obsessed with Nintendo since I was very young, specifically the Nintendo Wii. And at the time, I had a white one coupled with Wii Sports and a dog-themed game that I can't remember the name of. I saved up almost a month worth of pocket money to buy this console, along with several games, and I loved that console as it was an escape from the garbage that another resident had been putting me through. Let's call this person Mike. Mike is not his real name. Mike, to put it kindly, is an absolute jerk. He would always pick fights with me, resort to violence if he doesn't get his way, and often stole or destroyed my property, such as the time he punched me in the back of the head because of an argument that I don't fully remember. All I remember was that I had an argument, got punched, and the next minute I was laying on the couch with a massive headache. Anyways, this all started when Mike and I were at the dinner table, and I tried to start a conversation about what we would do if we ran our own empire. He went on and on about how if he ran his own empire, he would eliminate me, if you know what I mean. And I honestly started to get a bit annoyed as I really tried changing the subject. He just kept going on and on until I snapped at him and told him to shut up and let others talk. Well, that was a massive mistake because he got so enraged that he walked from the dinner table and entered my room, which I accidentally left unlocked. not. He proceeded to trash my room, destroying my brand new Nintendo Wii, all of the games, and even a Kodak camera that a teacher gifted me. I rushed in to try and stop him, but the caregivers proceeded to restrain me instead of him, thinking that I was the aggressor. I couldn't do a thing as he slammed my console on the ground multiple times until it was simply in pieces. I can't remember much of what happened after that, but I do recall picking up my destroyed console and shards of the game that was still inside fell out, and obviously I was very upset to say the least. A few weeks went by and I finally scraped up some money to buy another console and another copy of Wii Sports. Things were pretty good until I forgot to lock my door again when I was having my regular phone call with my mother. When I finished the phone call, I went back to my room and realized my console was missing. I went to the lounge and that jerk was playing Wii Sports Tennis on my console. Being the introverted and honestly quite scared kid that I was, I kindly asked him if I could have the console back, and wouldn't you guess it, he completely ignored me. After a few minutes of this garbage, I decided, you know what, screw this, and I forcefully unplugged the console and walked off. He got angry and threw the game controller at me, and then tried attacking me again. I ran to the bedroom, locked the door, and asked the caregivers to grab the remote and cables, which they did, only after a long incident where Mike tried throwing bricks through my bedroom window. Thankfully, I moved out a few months later to a foster home after encountering a few more entitled and violent residents. And you know what? I absolutely made sure the console came with me. I still have the console somewhere in storage, but my caseworker can't find it. So I bought another one, which I still play to this day. Wow, I cannot believe that that place didn't buy you a new console, or at least force Mike to buy one for you. Like seriously, the caregiver runs in there and restrains you? Like, are they blind? Do they not see this idiot just trashing the place? How could they possibly get that mixed up? Like seriously, you've got to really suck at your job to restrain the wrong kid. Here's this kid trying to protect his property. Meanwhile, Mike's going on this massive rampage for seemingly nothing. Like, that's incredibly inappropriate and so obnoxious in my opinion. So sure, you bought a new one for yourself, but I really think it should have fallen on that care facility to either force Mike to buy a new one for you or to replace it themselves. But overall, I'm glad you don't live in that environment anymore, and hopefully things got better for you in your life, because I can only imagine saving up all that money to buy a console that meant something to you, only to then have some entitled weirdo run in there and destroy it to pieces. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding after she kicked me out of being her maid of honor? Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I'm entangled in a wedding drama of epic proportions. My recently engaged best friend, who's 29, asked me to be her maid of honor, and words can't even describe how happy I was. We've been inseparable since kindergarten, and I was ready to make her big day unforgettable. I spent nearly $700 on her bachelorette party, buying cute outfits for everybody, and renting a party bus where you can drink as much as you want. The other girls pitched in, but I'm the most financially stable, so the majority of it fell on me. I helped plan the wedding of her dreams, right down to contacting the vendors and setting dates when she was too busy. I made the save the date and invitation cards. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I did a lot for her. And then 2 weeks before the wedding, my best friend asked me to step down and said that her future sister-in-law would be taking the role of maid of honor. I was so angry, and we got into a huge argument over this, where I admittedly said some things I wasn't proud of. Since then, I've received text messages from our friends, as well as best friends of the family, the groom's family, and even the sister-in-law, telling me that I'm a drama queen who needs to get over herself and that it isn't all about me. This has really been getting to me. Now, at this point, I'm just gonna wait and let my emotions cool off and then try and have a sit down with my friend and talk about this. But honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding? No, you are not the jerk. You literally spent, what, $700 trying to set up this bachelorette party, as well as literally setting up every aspect of this wedding and its celebration, only to then have her kick you out as the maid of honor? Like, are you kidding me right now? You literally only did that because you were the maid of honor. Like, it really seems like your friend was trying to use you in some kind of way, and that is so unbelievably toxic. Like, seriously, this lady sucks. Who in their right mind would treat a friend like that? You tell them, oh yeah, you're gonna be my maid of honor, don't even worry about it. And once you've done all this planning and prep work and all this other stuff, suddenly they're like, okay, job's done, time for you to leave, you're no longer the maid of honor. Like, I would be angry as well. Like, you literally spend hundreds of dollars on this stupid wedding only to then not get any of the recognition that you absolutely deserve. And you know what? Anyone who's saying, wow, you're such a drama queen, this isn't about you, those people are idiots. It absolutely is about you. No, the wedding itself is about your best friend, but you getting catapulted out of the way after everything got set up, yeah, that's definitely about you. You did that, nobody else did. So for your best friend who's getting married to do that to you is so unacceptable. So no, once and for all, you are not the jerk here. I would definitely not attend this wedding if I was in your shoes, and if you do end up going through with that, I honestly don't blame you one bit. Am I the jerk for yelling at my sister after she disrespected my chronically ill daughter who only has a few years left to live? Here's what happened. I'm a single mom to Emily. Emily is not her real name, and she is my only child. She's been sick since she was 2 years old, and if I'm going to be honest, she likely won't make it to the age of 10. Her dad left us when she got sick. Emily spends 1 week in the hospital and then 1 week at home. Because of this, the last time I was able to send her to school was like 2 years ago, and this is when we were able to do preschool 3 hours a day, 2 times a week. Now, the only time she's around other kids is when she's in a hospital. Emily hates sharing her toys, so I try not to make her do it if I can help it. Usually when she sees her cousins, I'll buy something like a big pack of chalk or a gallon of bubbles, and I will tell her that it's for everybody, but that's the only time that she'll share. My sister and her 2 daughters, ages 5 and 7, are living with us temporarily. It's been difficult for everyone. At first, I switched rooms with Emily, and we put all 3 girls in the master bedroom, but Emily hated sharing rooms and said the girls were always touching her stuff, so we switched back and put the girls in the spare room with their mom. My sister was complaining that the room was too crowded, so she's staying on a cot in my office, but apparently that's also uncomfortable, so she wants the girls to share again. My sister does not pay any rent. Her husband sends $500 a month to help pay for their groceries, and she helps with Emily while I'm working. Thankfully, my job is pretty flexible, so I'm able to watch her while I work. They've also been complaining that I take Emily on day and weekend trips all without them. Emily just spent the week in the hospital, and we came home on Saturday. My niece's beds were moved into Emily's room, and her toys were literally everywhere. I confronted my sister, and she said that Emily isn't using her room or even her toys half the time, and that little girls should be sharing with each other. I told her that Emily has already made it clear that she does not want to share her room or her toys, and that her room needs to be the way we left it by the end of the day. She says I'm being unfair, so I just snapped at her. I said that I would be prioritizing my kid over her ungrateful self and her kids, and that if she can't get over my kid not sharing, she needs to find somewhere else to live. Well, they did end up fixing Emily's room, but they haven't been talking to us. At this point, I'm thinking about kicking them out anyways. So honestly, am I the jerk for freaking out in the way that I did? What should I do? The fact that this lady tried to force her kids into Emily's room and then tried to take all of her toys is honestly so disgusting. You said it best. Emily has maybe 4 years left to live. She is very sick and literally spends half of the year inside the hospital. So you know what? With a kid like that, I honestly would be in the same boat. I would be like, sure, don't share your toys, keep them for yourself, I don't care. Anything that makes you feel happy is honestly okay with me. If we're able to make it around this bend of you being really sick, then sure, we can correct that behavior. But right now, I'm gonna give you everything that I can, which makes sense when it comes to like the day trips and the weekend trips that you go on, as well as your job giving you the flexibility to watch your kid if you need to. So for your sister to act like this is not a big deal and that she can just strong arm her way around this house, in my opinion, is a complete breach of trust, and in my opinion, is more than enough for you to ask her to leave your home. Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would be under that same thought process, and I'd be like, no, this is not working, she has got to go. And it's not like your sister didn't know about your daughter's boundaries. You made it very clear. She does not want to share her toys, and she wants her room to be just hers. Like seriously, if you can't live by that, then you need to go and figure out another situation. And in my opinion, I really think the fact that you're sticking to your values and these boundaries is also such a good thing for your daughter. Like this shows that her boundaries and her decision making really does matter, and nobody has the right to push you around and make you do anything you don't want to do. So no, you're not the jerk if you decide to kick her out, and honestly, I don't blame you, because your sister's behavior was so unacceptable. And considering the fact that your daughter is already so sick, I don't think it's a bad idea to possibly ask them to leave. Today, I messed up by committing one of the worst acts in the restaurant industry by accidentally spilling an entire tray full of drinks down a woman's back who was celebrating celebrating her birthday, and needless to say, I've never been more humiliated in my life. Here's what happened. So for a bit of backstory, I work in fine dining as a server and bartender at a very fancy steakhouse. I work 60 hours this week, with only one day off, and one of my early out nights was taken away due to my coworker cutting off the tip of her finger. I was serving this Saturday night, and I came into the shift fueled with anxiety, so I was already off to a bad start. I had a 9-top coming in to celebrate a woman's 60th birthday, and we offer a decoration service, so the entire table was decked out with balloons, candles, special plates and chargers, and even a table runner, so I guess you could say it was very extra. They come from the bar with drinks, and I go over the menu with them immediately. I grabbed orders for second rounds and head right over to the bar. In my mind, I'm trying to get over the anxiety and tell myself that everything is going to run smooth. Well, I was wrong. I was oh so wrong. I come back to the table with the drinks on my tray, and I bet you can tell exactly where this is heading. This table, of course, is in the tightest spot possible, and I have tiny T-Rex arms, so I'm reaching to give this man his beer, and while I'm doing that, the entire tray of drinks dumps onto the back of this 60-year-old woman. It was humiliating, oh so very humiliating. I still had other tables, and they watched the entire thing, so I composed myself, and I told her that we actually have a hairdryer, and I could get her clothing dry immediately. Thankfully, she was so nice and patient, and I truly was so undeserving of her positive attitude. The only win that came out of all of this was me catching the red wine. Thankfully, the rest of the night ran very smoothly. I'm surprised I did not cry, because I am a sensitive soul and super hard on myself, and I'm hoping that I never do this accidentally ever again. Man, that has got to be like a make or break moment in the restaurant industry. I can literally only imagine that jaw-dropping moment where all the drinks got poured down that poor lady's shirt. Like seriously, either she's gonna freak out and cuss you out, or she's gonna be a sweet woman on her 60th birthday. But thankfully you got the latter, which in my opinion really does not happen in the restaurant industry. From my own personal experience, some customers just act like absolute demons, waiting for you to mess up just so they can jump down your neck. And obviously you didn't throw those drinks on purpose, like it was clearly a mistake and you didn't do it maliciously. And I think any reasonable person like the woman in the story could at least excuse that and say, you know what, accidents happen. So although this sucks, hopefully it never happens again, because the next time you might not get so lucky. Am I the jerk for kicking my daughter out of my house after she disrespected me and her stepmom? Because right now I'm starting to doubt myself, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my daughter is 20 years old and in college. She has a dorm on campus, but she doesn't live there. I love my daughter, but she can be a lot. Drama follows her everywhere, and I was hoping she would grow out of it, but it never really happened. Due to this, she has gone through multiple friend groups, and as she puts it, they are simply just jealous, so she just doesn't have any college friends. Now, I married when she turned 18. I was never married, and her biological mom wasn't in the picture, so this was an adjustment, but I want to make it clear that I did the right steps. I introduced them when I was serious, which was about 2 years into us dating. I spent more time with her. I didn't force them together. We made boundaries for my wife, like punishment comes from me, not her. And when she was struggling, I got her into therapy. She ended up stopping when she hit 18 since I can't make her go. Well, my daughter is making it impossible for them to get along. If my wife tells her the food is ready, she gets angry that my wife is bothering her. And if my wife doesn't tell her, then she gets upset that she wasn't invited. It's contradiction after contradiction. I have talked to her, and my wife has tried to do what she asked, and then she's upset that she did that. I mean, this is literally an impossible situation. Now, here's where my main issue comes into play. My wife's birthday was yesterday. I put out her presents and her cake on the table, and I had to go to work, so I just left it. I came back, and guess what? All her presents were opened, and my daughter was eating a piece of cake. I asked her, why in the world did you do that? And she told me that she doesn't deserve birthday presents. This is when I had had enough, and I told her if she hates her stepmom so much, she can leave this house. I said to her that she has a dorm, and I don't want to see her back at my house until she gives an apology to me and my wife. She then started crying and calling me a jerk. I have been getting a lot of text messages from her, and now I'm doubting my decision. So seriously, am I the jerk for telling my daughter she's got to get lost, all because she constantly puts down my wife? Wow, your daughter is a piece of garbage. Seriously, she is just absolutely out of line. First of all, she has a dorm on campus. She literally has a place to live, so there's literally no reason for her to be sitting around at home while also treating your wife like garbage. Like seriously, there's no good excuse in my opinion. And I mean, look at her behavior. Nothing will ever satisfy her. If your wife does something that your daughter just secretly doesn't like, then she's gonna freak out and treat her like garbage. But if your wife does everything right, your daughter's still gonna treat her like garbage. Like seriously, I can kind of see why she has no friends at college. She is very clearly the toxic one, and I don't blame those people for walking away from her. Now, when it comes to your wife having that birthday and her basically ruining the entire experience, that would be my breaking point as well. Like I can understand this is an adjustment and she's trying to get to know your wife and all that stuff, but this is a clear line in the sand that this disrespect will not be tolerated. So good for you for putting your foot down and saying, you know what, you better apologize or you're not coming back. Because she definitely needs to learn her lesson that she can't talk to you or your wife like that ever again. Would I be the jerk if I accepted a large sum of money from my biological family? Because right now, my adoptive family is telling me not to take it. And right now, I feel so lost and I seriously don't know what to do. So to start things out, I was adopted as an infant. I never met my biological father or mother, but knew I was adopted from day one. I also know that my biological mother was 15 when she had me, and my biological dad was not much older. My parents have a biological daughter who's my sister, who is in grad school and has student debt, whereas I got a full ride to do my undergrad. This year, I took a DNA test to learn about what cultures I belong to and genetics that I have, but also to screen from any genetic diseases. I discovered that I'm predisposed to certain allergies that I didn't know about, and I also discovered several matches. And when I saw the last name, I didn't think anything of it. However, a few weeks ago, I received a phone call from a family law office asking if I really was who I claimed to be, and we ended up speaking for a little bit. I was asked to join a Zoom meeting later on, and when I did, I saw my biological grandmother for the first time and I started welling up. She and I have the same color eyes and I have her nose. I didn't know how cathartic seeing somebody who resembled you felt, and I started to cry right then and there. We chatted for a few minutes before getting down to business. I was shown legal credentials proving that this was a real attorney's office, and I was asked to show some photo ID. I asked what was going on when my grandmother told me the truth. My biological dad is a trust fund baby, and he is very rich. And trust me, as a middle-class person, this was a huge shock. After my biological family found out he had a kid and told nobody about me, they were absolutely furious. My grandmother wants to change over my biological dad's trust over to me. I won't say how much for privacy reasons, but I could live on it for the rest of my life, donate to charity every year, and still have a lot left over. It is major money. My grandmother also said that because she has funds for her other grandchildren, I would receive one of those in addition to my biological dad's trust. She told me that my biological dad is single, and it won't affect anyone but him. She also said she would want to find my biological mother to compensate her as well. The lawyer told me I should obtain a family law attorney and that my biological family would pay for them so I can obtain what my grandmother calls the money I deserve. So I obtained 2 attorneys, one family and one estate, and they are walking me through the process of obtaining the funds. Well, I told my family about it, and they talked about how my sister could finally be a professional student and how their mortgage could be paid off. When I told them how the funds work and how I would be given an allowance every month instead of being a free-for-all, their tune suddenly changed. They said I am their family and should refuse the funds out of principle. I really want to accept the funds and meet and reconnect with my biological family, but I don't want to lose my family while making the decision. So honestly, would I be the jerk for accepting this money from my biological family? I can't believe you're asking this question. Your adoptive family is wrong. You would not be a jerk for accepting this money. Like, I can't believe that your family is not being more supportive. Like, at first they were like, oh man, we're gonna be able to pay off our mortgage and your sister's gonna be a professional student. But once you said there's limitations on how much money you can get out, suddenly they're like, oh yeah, don't accept that money. It's the principle of the matter. When in reality, the only principle here is that they get a cut. They were okay with it until they couldn't get money out of your pocket. I also really don't think it was a good idea to tell your family that at all. Like, I seriously think that was a complete miscalculation, and I really don't think you should have done that. But honestly, with all things considered, I think you would be an absolute fool to not accept that money, because this is a life-changing moment for you, and in my opinion, it would be a complete waste to throw it away, all because of the jaded opinion of your adoptive family. My entitled stepmother tries to set me up at dinner by surprise inviting my boyfriend over just to then accuse me of cheating on him. Here's what happened. I'm a 20-year-old female and I do art commissions. My boyfriend, who's 22 years old, has always been supportive of my art and even modeled poses I needed for some of my commissions if his body type fit what the client was looking for. We both have a circle of friends we both share. Some of the friends in the circle go to the gym with him, and each of them have their own unique body shape, and they are all very different. Usually, people will commission some of their own characters, but most are characters from animes and stuff like that. Some of his friends have very similar body types to what I'm commissioning for. Every character has their own body type, some thinner, some more muscular, and with our friends' permission, they will do the pose that I ask for them. It's not suggestive or anything like that for either parties. I just use them as references, and this will be very important later on. My mother saw me talking to one of our mutual friends, as well as me trying to pose him on FaceTime to get the angle and pose that I needed. However, the only thing she saw was me telling a shirtless man to pose on his knees. So trust me, this was very awkward for all parties. I got the pose that I wanted, and he sent a few photos in that pose with different angles that his girlfriend took. She has been a reference for me a few times, and she and him support me and know it's not anything intimate. Well, my mother called my boyfriend without me knowing out to dinner with us, and I was surprised and happy to have him over for dinner. When he sat down, she asked me if I had anything I'd like to tell him, and at this point, I was so confused. I said that I didn't, but I was happy to have him over anyways. She then got upset and told him to brace himself, and then told him that I cheated on him. He asked her what she meant, and she told him I was on the phone with a man on his knees. And when my mom said that, I honestly was so blown away because I never thought she would ever try to ruin my relationship in this way. After my mom said this, my boyfriend and I just started laughing. My mother asked what was so funny about me being unfaithful to my boyfriend, so I had to explain to her that it wasn't me being unfaithful and how I was having our friend pose for a drawing. When I told her this, she just sat there and apologized profusely. I even called up our buddy to confirm that no, nothing sketchy was going on, and my friend and his girlfriend told her that they have been my personal models for a while. I mean, seriously, how my mom ever forgot that I do this is beyond me. Thankfully, everything is fine now, but honestly, this scenario absolutely blew my mind. Yeah, I think I would lose my mind if my mom tried to set me up and make my significant other think that I was cheating on them. Like, seriously, what was she thinking in that situation? Does she not know that her daughter does art commissions? Like, that has to be obvious at this point, right? I'm willing to bet she has all this like art supplies, and she probably talks about doing commissions constantly. Like, this isn't a new hobby. Like, she's already using like people as references just to try and make sure that she gets the character right. Like, why on earth would you make the assumption, oh my god, she's gotta be cheating? Like, that is such a giant leap in logic, it's not even funny. Like, just imagine for a second if the boyfriend didn't take this situation well. What if he jumped ahead of what was actually happening and made some assumption that was like the opposite of what was actually going on? This original poster's mom literally could have ruined her relationship right then and there. Like, the appropriate thing to do would have been to like pull your daughter aside and be like, hey, who is that guy on his knees on your video chat? And then it could have been cleared up right then and there. But no, instead she decided to take the toxic route and be like, ooh, I'm gonna catch her in her lie. So thankfully this all worked out in the end, because this seriously could have gone really badly. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by calling for a welfare check on my neighbor, and as a result, the cops have completely kicked in her door, and now I feel so guilty and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Well, I definitely set myself up to get yelled at by my neighbor. My partner and I haven't seen our neighbor in 6 weeks. She lives alone, she's in her 60s, she suffers from emphysema, and is only ever at home. In the 8 years that we've been here, I don't think she's ever been on holiday. We see her on our camera every other day going to her bin or pruning her garden, or we see her lights on when we go for a walk and leave the house. But lately, there's been absolutely nothing. A couple weeks back, I knocked on the door to check and there was no answer. My partner has been telling me to call the police, but I've been reluctant because I know she is Indian and she may have gone to see family abroad or something like that. Well, today I bit the bullet and asked for a welfare check by the police. They tell me to knock on the door again, but I get nothing. I even shout through the letterbox and still nothing. I look through the window and the curtains are open, the lights are off, and you can see through the kitchen, and still, there is nobody there. They asked for her name, and unfortunately, I don't know it. I just know that she has a daughter who lives away and rarely comes to visit. She gets her shopping delivered, but that's not happened since before we noticed. They say they'll reach out to the hospital to see if they have details and they would send someone around. Well, I hang up and leave after that, and I don't expect anything done that day. Well, midnight, I get a knock on the door. My partner and myself are night owls anyways, so that's fine, and clearly it's the police. I tell them again about the scenario. I tell them about how she has a daughter, and I send them on their merry way, and I assume that they reach out to the next of kin to find out about her. But nope, that is absolutely not what happened. 30 minutes later, they came back and all I hear is a loud boom, and my house was practically shaking from the deep banging of their doorbuster. Now, I hear it 6 more times, and I say to my wife, oh no, it's starting now? My other neighbors have kids, so I knew this was gonna wake them up as well. Another 6 times I hear it, and we are wondering why on earth the house is shaking so much. I look out the window and the neighbors' lights are on. I think to myself, great, here's some explaining to the neighbors for tomorrow. There's about 12 more booms, where I notice that they're struggling and they could just go out the back. But after a small pause, I think they're finally in. I check the back window and I see a police officer around the back. They have been hammering the gate that is on my house. So by now, the neighbor is coming to check on what's going on, as well as 2 other neighbors walking up. So I decided to go out and talk with them and the police officer that is telling them what's going on. They are still slamming the door. I mean, it must be about 20 to 30 minutes of bangs by now. The guy is looking tired and he's passing it on to his buddy, who is also looking like he's had better days. The police officer told us anything could have happened, so I was right to call. I said, well, I wasn't expecting you to start knocking the door down at 1 in the morning, and she stated that they had to, as they couldn't leave the scene unchecked, as anyone could be inside, they simply didn't know. So they keep banging on the front door, because the rear entrance to the house is a conservatory, and breaking the door would likely damage the structure. They are there for ages. I mean, this door is the Goliath of doors. It is simply not moving. After another 5 minutes of banging, we all get bored and go back into our homes. And then after another 5 minutes of banging, and the 2 boys in the 2 houses went to look again, there was then another silence. I say to my wife, well, it looks like they finally have gotten in. I then decide to go out the front again and check, and my assumptions were correct. They had flashlights going around room to room, and I suddenly realized that they wouldn't be looking in all the rooms if there was a body. It made me realize that no, she's not in the house and she's probably on holiday. And I think to myself, oh no, she is going to be so angry. The police officer comes out and says, well, she's not in there. So I think to myself, oh no, because now I know what's going to happen. This old lady is on a lovely holiday, seeing friends and family, and her good-for-nothing neighbor has ruined it all, and she can't even get into her own house. She'll return at 1 in the morning to a house that she can't even enter. So I asked them, okay, so what are the next steps? The police officer actually said, well, we're gonna board up the door and the gate. We'll put a notice that we've been here and for her to reach out. I then asked them, okay, but what about the damages? Hoping that it's gonna be covered or I'm gonna get it. They say to me, yeah, we'll cover that. She just needs to call us. So I think to myself, well, that's a relief, but she's not getting a door until after she thinks that she's been robbed. The police officer then hits me with the kicker. He says to me, yeah, we'll try to reach out to her next of kin to see if they have seen her or know where she's at. So now I'm thinking either they didn't bother reaching out to the next of kin or they couldn't get a hold of them. Either way, I've got a lot of explaining to do, and hopefully that conversation doesn't go badly. Yeah, I want to start off first by saying that you are not at fault here. You did not do anything wrong for being worried about your neighbor. It's the cops that rolled up that are absolutely at fault in this situation. Like, it's not even close. Like, seriously, let me get this straight. They didn't think to reach out to any family members or anything like that first. Their first response was, okay, let's kick the door in. Like, what are you doing? This is seriously unbelievable. These cops absolutely suck. There's no way they can just do that and get away with it. I know if I came home, I wouldn't be angry with my neighbor for checking in on me. I'd be upset about the cops kicking my door in. So truly, I would not be hard on yourself. I think it's completely fine that you were checking in, and if anything, you can point the finger at these stupid cops for kicking her door in, because you never asked for them to do that. And in my opinion, that is a complete unnecessary escalation that they very easily could have avoided. Am I the jerk for not inviting my stepsister to my wedding after she accused me of trying to steal her thunder by planning my wedding date close to when she was gonna have her baby shower? Here's what happened. So I got engaged to my longtime partner by the name of Matt. Matt is not his real name. We were thrilled to start planning our wedding. We decided to have a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. Among the potential guests was my stepsister by the name of Emily. Emily is also not her real name. We don't have a great relationship, but I didn't want to create any unnecessary drama, so I intended to invite her and her husband. The issue began when I shared our wedding date with the family. Emily immediately reacted negatively, saying our wedding was too close to her planned baby shower, which was scheduled for the following month. She accused me of stealing her thunder by having my wedding so close to her event. I was shocked by her response because we had never discussed her baby shower date, and I couldn't have known about it when we chose our wedding date. I tried to explain this, but Emily insisted that I should have somehow known and adjusted our plans to accommodate her. The tension escalated when Emily called a family meeting to discuss my selfishness in planning my wedding near her baby shower. During the meeting, she accused me of being inconsiderate and trying to overshadow her life events. The rest of our family members seemed torn, with some taking her side and others understanding my perspective. In the end, I felt like I was being treated unfairly and that Emily was making unreasonable demands. So I made the difficult decision to not invite her to our wedding, fearing that her presence would only add stress and tension to our special day. Now our family is divided, and some family members are angry at me for not inviting Emily. She continues to claim that I'm the one being selfish and unreasonable. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for not inviting my stepsister to my wedding after she accused me of trying to steal her thunder? What should I do? Okay, I do not think you're the jerk at all. Your stepsister sounds unbelievably entitled. Like seriously, what is her problem? She is actually walking around here being like, wow, my baby shower is more important than your wedding. Like seriously, lady? No, it's not. You can move your baby shower date, no problem. They have a wedding venue that they probably rented out, and they have potential family members traveling from out of state just to show up to this wedding. They can't just change their wedding date out of nowhere. Like when that date is announced, that's exactly when it's gonna happen. Like your stepsister could easily push the date of her baby shower to the next week if she really wanted to. Like these two events are not even close to being the same thing. Also, your stepsister is unbelievably petty. Does she really need to call a family meeting because of your selfishness, saying you're trying to steal her thunder and how you're just being unreasonable? Like seriously, this lady has some issues, and she clearly wants everything all the time to be about her. So no, you're not the jerk. And you know what? I don't blame you for uninviting her, because based on the way she's acting right now, you can bet she was gonna try and make some kind of problems at your wedding. So I don't blame you for taking that step, and anyone who doesn't like the fact that your selfish stepsister has been kicked out of your wedding, then they can either deal with it or they can just not show up. Am I the jerk for not making game nights in my store a child-free event? Because at this point, I'm starting to get some complaints and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 35-year-old male and I own a game store and hold board game or D&D night at least 3 times a week. I have a few tables set up in the back so people can come in and play games, along with a small kitchen that is really just a fridge, a microwave, a sink, and a cupboard, so people can have some snacks and drinks while playing. One of the regular groups have been playing D&D in my store on a weekly basis for the past 3 years, and I've sometimes joined them as a guest player, and it has always been great fun. About a year ago, they had to find a new DM because their usual DM didn't have the time to dedicate to preparing campaigns any longer. While they were looking, they still came in weekly, but just played regular board games instead. Now, about a few months ago, this 10-year-old girl by the name of Emma showed up with her mother at one of the game nights. Emma is obviously not her real name. According to her mother, Emma had been spending months making all kinds of materials for playing Dungeons & Dragons, but didn't know anyone who would play with her, so her mother wondered if it was okay for her to ask at my store if anyone would be willing to play. The regular group was more than happy to join in for a session, and it ended up going so well, they asked Emma to DM for them regularly if she wanted to. Fast forward to now, and Emma is DMing 2 days a week, one time for the regular group and one time for one-off sessions with other people to jump in if they want to. I swear this girl is a genius. She has memorized the entire player's handbook and monster guide, and made a fully homebrew campaign that's genuinely fun and exciting, though sometimes also surprisingly dark. Now, here's where the problem starts to come into play. A few other people have started complaining about there being a child on game nights, saying the reason they're playing here is because they have children at home. Now that Emma is also coming to game nights, they feel like they can't play games as they usually do because they keep having to think about whether their language or jokes are inappropriate for the presence of a child. I told them that I never said anything about providing a child-free space, so I won't be banning Emma from coming, while also saying that I'm sorry if they don't like it. But I also said they're welcome to plan their nights on days where Emma isn't there, or find a different place to play. I did tell Emma's mother that Emma is only allowed to be here as long as one of her parents is also present, and that just comes back to common sense because I'm not taking that risk. So honestly, am I the jerk for not banning children from game nights and telling people to just basically suck it up? What should I do? I don't think there's anything wrong with having a kid involved in your Dungeons & Dragons game, and I think you're going about it in the right way. As long as her parents are here, then there's no problem. It sounds like this Emma girl is a really good kid. She doesn't seem like a problem or anything like that, and I honestly don't think it's a problem in that regard. But I do have to say I completely understand where the other adults in the room are coming from. I like joking with my friends and making stupid jokes when kids aren't around. I like just being an adult and letting loose and letting my hair down. So when a 10-year-old girl is sitting at the table, it kind of hinders your ability to be vocal about what's going on, and it stops any kind of progress in the game. So I do see exactly where they're coming from. So while I do think it's a good idea to be welcoming of anybody who wants to come in and play the game, I also think it would be a good idea to make sure there's a specific space that adults can have fun and play Dungeons & Dragons without a kid being present. I really do think there is some kind of middle ground that can be found, and I think this will benefit both you and the rest of the store if some kind of mutual agreement can be made. Am I the jerk for telling my stepsister's son the honest truth, which is something that she did not want me to tell him? Here's what happened. When I was 7 years old, I lost my dad, and my mom remarried when I was 9 years old, and my stepsister was 12 at the time. We had very different experiences with the whole blending of the families. I didn't really want it to happen. I wasn't exactly looking to make them my new dad and sister. I mean, they never really became that either, but I have accepted that they are family. With my stepsister, her mom chose not to be in her life, and she always longed for a family where she had a mom and maybe some other siblings. It made us all living together very uncomfortable, with me and her wanting very different things, and her dad and my mom really unhappy with how I felt about us becoming a real family, as they would put it. We're all okay now. We're not so close, but no hate or animosity is there anymore. At least it was hidden until this. So my sister married when she was 20 years old and had her son then too. She lost her husband 2 years ago, and her son is now 9. My stepsister has met a man who's a widower, and he has 2 kids under 3. They are trying to get to the point where they move in together, but her son is not really blending with them, which is how she said it. He's not unkind or rude, but he's not really making an effort is how she views it, and he has said that he doesn't want to be a part of the new family that she wants. They decided to go away for the weekend together and see if that would be a good experience and whether it would help them bond. She said her son ignored when the 3-year-old wanted to hold his hand, and then he didn't want to sit with her partner, who was also looking at the stars on their first night there. He also didn't want to take any photos with any of them. So she decided I needed to talk to him as someone who also lost my dad. She said the adult me could give him a more mature insight into everything. So I told her that I would talk to him, but I would not read from a script, with her telling me to just be honest. Well, I did talk to her son. I assured him that how he was feeling was okay, and that I had felt the same way. I told him it was okay for his feelings to change, and I answered that mine hadn't really. They had instead just softened, so I could like them as people, even if they weren't my dad and my sister. Well, he liked hearing that, and he said he really did believe that would be how he'd feel, and I assured him that it was okay. He was honest with how he just didn't feel the way his mom wanted to, and I related with him on that. Well, my stepsister did not like that, and a couple days later she was calling to cuss me out and saying that I didn't help her like I said I would. She told me her son was more sure now that he did not want to try and be a family with them, and she told me I was so selfish to ruin her life the way I had ruined my mom's. I told her my concern was with her son and how he was doing, but she told me I could get lost. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like you were trying to help this kid out. I don't think anything you could have said or done would have changed that kid's mind. He clearly does not like this new family, and there's nothing anybody can do about that besides him. You didn't push him over the edge or validate anything that he feels. You just gave an honest take on what's actually happening around him, and that is not a bad thing in my opinion. I think it's a good thing because you have a good viewpoint on what is happening in this kid's life. And for your stepsister to be acting this way is so inappropriate. She's trying to blame her son's actions on you. But you know what? This is not your fault. No one can force that that kid to feel any way that he doesn't want to feel. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think the way your stepsister is acting is completely uncalled for, and it's absolutely unacceptable for her to blame something on you that you absolutely didn't do. Today, I messed up by falling for a fake job scam and losing $3,000 out of my banking account. And now I feel so embarrassed and angry and incredibly frustrated. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I want to start this off by saying that this happened 2 weeks ago. I got laid off from a job in the middle of September, and I have been struggling to find work. I've got my resume revamped and been working with career coaches, but nothing seems to be helping with it. After my final resume was returned to me, I began sending off applications, and within a day or two, I got an email that a company wanted to interview me for a possible remote position. And when I saw this, I was so excited. I was so happy that the service worked with the career coaches and that all I needed to do was buff up my resume. For the past 5 years, I've had an hour commute each way and then another 3 years of doing 45 minutes before that. Remote work at this point sounded like a dream come true. A few days later, they send me an interview packet. It's a questionnaire in lieu of a panel interview. A little strange, but not unheard of. All the questions were legit questions, and the technical ones were very technical. Some companies understand that asking someone to come up with the optimal solution right on the spot and under pressure makes them miss out on good candidates that are just awkward in those situations. This was a mathematician role, so it goes doubly true. I spent the next day working on the interview packet and forwarding drafts to my career coach to make sure that I wasn't sabotaging myself by being too honest, as I'm not a great salesman and I'm open about things I struggle with, instead of claiming I was some kind of amazing employee. The coach said everything checked out, and that after a few revisions, I had a pretty good interview packet, so I proceeded to send it off. Well, a few days later, I get the congratulations email, and I'm ecstatic. I finally have a job doing something I like, and I get to do it in my pajamas. I accept the offer, and the next day they send me the offer letter and ask me to sign. I review the contract closely, as I'm a paranoid person, and so far it seemed a little bit strange that I haven't talked to anybody on the phone. The contract has all the right logos and address, the pay is well within the range of the job, and everything passes my personal checks. So I sign the document and I send it back. The next day, they send me a check for $5,000 for work equipment, and my boss gets in contact with me to set up my training and explaining the day-to-day process to me and getting a feel for where my coding skills are currently at. And again, this is not out of the ordinary. I've had jobs that have sent me checks before for relocation and equipment, but just because I'm paranoid, I do some due diligence. And boy, do I wish I had done that sooner. The domain name for the email address of the HR person looks legit. No tricky characters or misspelled letters. The person I'm emailing is the actual HR person at this company, and my boss is an actual manager at the company as well. The check has the right watermark and addresses on it. It is signed by the actual CEO of the company. I mean, everything is checking out. My boss tells me I need to use their vendor to order the computer, as well as anything else that might come along with the computer. The first blatant red flag popped up here for me, but the vendor site looked legit, and it was a 10% discount off of MSRP for the equipment that they wanted me to have. So I sent $2,000 to the vendor. The order goes through, and I breathe a bit easier now, comfortably believing I have a job, and that this is not a scam, which is where they wanted me. I'm buttered up and my brain is smoothed out. The location of the company was Eastern time zone, and I live in Mountain time, so the next morning I woke up at the respectable unemployed hour of 10 o'clock in the morning to a series of text messages and emails from 7 o'clock in the morning saying that they're trying to get a hold of me and they need me to send $1,000 to the vendor for some additional equipment. Now, if you've ever been desperately unemployed, then you know that occasionally you do some dumb stuff in hopes of a job. You know, stuff like accepting lower pay, taking something that you're overqualified for, or in my case, worried that they're going to fire me before I even get started. So half asleep, I send another $1,000, but my idiot self can tell something is up now. A couple of hours later, they try to get me to send more money, and I tell them that I hit my card limit for the day and I couldn't spend any more. So they then asked me to do something that I honestly never expected. They asked me to go to a Bitcoin ATM just so I could send them Bitcoin. At that point, my heart sank, and I realized that not only was I getting scammed, but that I was also out $3,000, which is money I need to survive as an unemployed person. I start reviewing everything and notice that I've literally been strung along this entire time as if I'm in the game BioShock. As I scroll through the messages, the amount of times they strung me along suddenly leapt out to me. I mean, how could I be so stupid? I decided to keep these guys going for a while instead of immediately calling them out. I figured if they're wasting time on me, then they can't use it on someone else. Meanwhile, I went on LinkedIn and found the cybersecurity manager and hit him up asking him what's going on. I end up talking to one of the managers that confirmed that it was indeed a scam, that I had a real check that belonged to the company and that all the documents were real, but it just wasn't real for me. I then call up my bank and I'm filing for fraud and making a police report. Obviously, there isn't much they can do for me, but there's always a chance that a scam this elaborate could be undone by them not using spoof numbers. As we come to a close of my lengthy tale, I do have some relatively good news. I have gotten back the $1,000 I sent out. I have no idea what happened to the other $2,000, and I'm definitely not holding my breath, but it's something. If you've ever been scammed before, I can now tell you that it is one of the worst feelings. You feel dumb, embarrassed, angry, and ashamed. You feel afraid and so many other emotions. I've always said that everybody is vulnerable to at least one scam, and you know what? I finally found mine. I'm lucky to have a supportive wife who hasn't yelled at me yet somehow about being dumb, and at least I can talk to my dad about how much this sucks. So the moral of the story is that everybody is vulnerable, and if you're shaking your head right now saying, no, that could never happen to me, well, guess what? This especially can happen to you. So it's better for you to stay safe and stay smart so that you don't fall for scams in the way that I did. Wow, what a crazy situation. If I lost $2,000 just like that, I think I would lose my mind. Like, first of all, the fact that they're scamming people who are looking for jobs, that is such a disturbing thing to do to somebody, and it's honestly just so unfair. Because then you run into people like the original poster, where they are literally desperate for a job. They're trying their best to stay afloat and not miss out on all the money they could be earning. They only have a couple $1,000s to their name, and they are literally just trying to make ends meet. So when they think they have this big job and they're doing exactly what these people say, it can be very easy to fall for this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I was in this original poster's shoes, I might have fallen for this too. I really think it can happen to anybody if you're not careful. So sure, this is a mess up to a degree, but at least now you know exactly what to look out for in the future. But it honestly just really sucks that you had to learn this the hard way. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled military veteran demands that we stay behind for a special event, claiming that he is more than qualified to take care of this hyperactive 7-year-old kid. So we decide to maliciously comply and literally watch this man fall apart at the seams, unable to control this child who was clearly never going to listen. Here's what happened. So this happened years ago with myself, a friend, my then boyfriend, and his daughter. We couldn't do much for toys for this particular Christmas, but our family was nominated for an event called Shop with a Veteran. It's where kids go to a Walmart with a veteran and can pick out their own Christmas gifts with a set amount of money donated by civilians and other veterans. The thing is, only the veteran can go in with them. I had later found out it was because some parents had earlier tried to persuade their kids to get things that were more catered to parents or another child instead of the child who was nominated. I can definitely understand the rule being enforced for this, but some children should have their parent with them pretty much regardless. My boyfriend's daughter was diagnosed with severe ADHD and had taken her medication, but she had gotten very excited when she found out about going to get Christmas gifts of her choosing. We found the lady hosting and explained to her about the daughter's ADHD and how she can be a whirlwind when she gets excited, and how she doesn't like to listen to people she doesn't know. When we explained to the lady hosting the event that one of us really should go in with his daughter just to make sure she behaved, she understood and talked to the veteran who was going to shop with the daughter. We immediately argued, claiming he was tired of parents wanting to pressure their kids to getting things they didn't want, and he wanted the daughter to have a good time picking out her gift. The lady tried to explain the situation, but the veteran wouldn't hear any of it. I clearly remember him grumbling at us. He said to us, "I've been to war, I can handle a kid." So I thought to myself, okay, you're gonna get exactly what you want. After the veteran took the daughter into the store, we saw two friends going in, and we didn't know that they would be there, but we were happy to see them nonetheless. Well, my boyfriend caught up with them and asked one of them if they could keep an eye on the daughter and the veteran. My boyfriend then emphasized that the veteran clearly thought he could handle his daughter, so they should just let him handle her. We waited for about an hour when the veteran returned with the daughter. She was grinning ear to ear with all the presents that she was able to get, and the veteran looked exhausted and like he had been through an absolute nightmare and back. He then yelled at us that that the daughter was the most disrespectful brat he had ever met. How she just had to touch all the toys and threw everything she wanted into the shopping cart, and she was a nightmare when he told her she couldn't have everything she picked out. Well, my boyfriend packed his daughter's gifts in the car and then took her back inside to start our grocery shopping. We couldn't do it while she was in there with a veteran because we had to wait outside for when they were done, so we could immediately take her and her gifts, which is understandable. They weren't babysitters after all. I decided to talk to the veteran and told my boyfriend that I'd meet him inside. I asked him if he was okay, and he said that he was fine, but then asked us why didn't we tell him that our daughter was crazy. I promptly corrected him by saying that she was not crazy. I explained her ADHD to him and how we only wanted to go in with them so that she would behave. We know that she knows to behave around us, at school, and at grandma's house. We explained how she doesn't like to listen to strangers, even if we know them and she doesn't. I apologized and told him that not all parents want to go in to use this as some kind of excuse to get their own gifts. Some genuinely just want to make sure their kids are behaving. Later in the store, our friend caught up with us and told us everything that happened. The daughter had run up and down the toys aisles. She kept going back and forth from the toys to the cart, throwing in anything that she could get her hands on. She even screamed at the veteran when he put some toys back, which is typical behavior when her normal authority figures aren't watching. When she was satisfied with the toy she did get, she kept asking for candy at the checkout, which is something she asks of pretty much anyone when we go to the store. It was amusing to us that a grizzled military veteran was outmatched by a hyperactive 7-year-old. We have since then been much better off, and we donate money to this event every year, and even toys for any toy drive they have. The veteran still does the event, but he's more understanding when certain children need their parents to go with them. He does get the odd, pushy parent every now and then, but now he handles them, rather than flat out denying all parents from ever going in. Yeah, that's what I like to call someone not knowing what they're getting into. Like seriously, if the parents are literally coming to you and being like, wait a second, we really should be present for when she goes into that store, that's probably a clear sign that yeah, I should probably listen to them and put my pride on the back burner so that I can have something to work with here. Because clearly this girl was like absolutely obnoxious. She was running all over the place, throwing toys in the basket left and right. She was acting like a kid who clearly had ADHD. And I also echo the way the original poster felt. I find it hilarious that this guy thought he could handle this child. So good for you for maliciously complying, because this guy clearly was not going to get it. And at least now it seems like he's learned a very valuable lesson about letting parents come along if they really request it. My entitled boss constantly screams at their staff anytime they even walk in the building, demanding that they work right away. So I decided to set up a resistance, coordinating with everybody in the office to only show up right when we were supposed to clock in. And I've never felt more satisfied to get back at this boss in a really subtle way. Here's what happened. I used to work in a trade shop run by a great boss everybody got along great with. That is, except for one very specific department head. Let's call them Bumblebee. For reasons that are unrelated to this story, the boss decided to sell the shop to Bumblebee, and in the wake, the majority of the staff quits within months, leaving us completely understaffed. I naively decided to stick it out and assumed that Bumblebee would hire people to fill the empty positions. But guess what? They didn't do that. We go from a 15-person trade shop all the way down to 5 people within a year, and that includes the 6 people who turned over. One of the many issues that developed, and trust me, there were many, was Bumblebee's inability to schedule or think through actions to the end and just plan ahead. While I worked there, which was about 2 years with the original boss, I often came in 10 to 15 minutes early due to the nature of my commute. I'd come in, unload my stuff, make some coffee, small talk with the coworkers, have some small talk with my boss, but we never really started work until everybody's scheduled start time. When Bumblebee took over, the moment you stepped into the shop, they immediately started to bark orders at you, regardless if you were in the building 15 to 20 minutes early. Now, at this point, I'm the most senior, and I'm the person left at the shop from the old regime, and when I would point out that we technically were not on the clock yet for another 15 to 20 minutes, and that I want to make some coffee, Bumblebee would just snap at you, telling you to do it now because so-and-so is coming right at opening. So I started to wait in my car, bringing coffee from home, and would only walk in the door as the last minute was changing. I was technically never late to work, and was ready to work the moment I stepped through the door. I don't know if Bumblebee caught on, but the rest of the staff did and followed suit, especially because I told them to. For the remaining months I lasted there, all my coworkers would still often show up early to work, but all would wait in the vehicle, and at some point, one of them had a minivan, and we all would just party in there, with all of us eventually going in as a group. Anytime a new person joined the staff, because someone always walked off, we would also warn them of what was happening. Well, it's been several years since I worked there, and I don't know any of the current staff besides Bumblebee. I happened to be doing an on-site install nearby at the time that the shop would be open, and I looked over in the parking lot in front of the shop, and just like clockwork, a minute before the shop was scheduled to open, about 6 people got out of their vehicles and headed in. Now, I may not work there any longer, but it's nice to see that my resistance is still going on. Honestly, this is really the best way to go about doing this. It's bad enough when you have a manager who just sucks at their job and can't even schedule people properly or on time. Like seriously, what's up with that? But you also have a manager who is very clearly a hothead. I mean, they were barking orders at you the second you walked in the door. Like seriously, I came in early to have a cup of coffee and try and gather my thoughts. I didn't step in the building to then start working off the clock. Like seriously, don't try and make people work off the clock. Give people a second to gather their thoughts and try and have some semblance of happiness for their job that day. But you know what? With all things considered, I personally think the way the original poster went about doing this was really smart. They didn't technically break any rules, but they did decide, you know what, we're not going to take this any longer. And so they literally started a resistance to be like, no, we're not going to work until we have to clock in. And honestly, with all things considered, I think that's a great idea, and it's really funny to see that that tradition is still ongoing. My boyfriend's house is absolutely disgusting, and now after visiting and experiencing this disgusting environment, I'm now reconsidering my entire relationship with my boyfriend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been seeing and dating this guy since July, and things have been going really good. It's a long distance situation, but we've managed to see each other at least once a month. So far, he's been kind and thoughtful, and no major red flags were detected on my end. Well, that is until recently. The first time I flew out to visit him, I decided to stay at an Airbnb since we were getting to know each other, and I wanted my own space. The trip went super well, and I had an amazing time. Last week, I went back and he invited me to stay with him this time. He lives with his brother and dad, but his dad was away, so it made sense and I agreed. When I got to his house, it was late and dark, so I didn't notice much other than a weird smell. They have 3 dogs and live on an island, so I figured that had something to do with it. When I woke up, I started to notice the house was pretty dirty. Things were scattered everywhere, the bathroom had dog hair and dirt, and overall it looked like it hadn't been kept up in quite a while. Now, I tried to look past it since there are 2 guys living there and I kept a positive attitude. Nobody gave me any rundown about the situation or apologized for the mess, but I figured his dad might have a small hoarding problem of some sort. On the second day, I started to notice even more things. The dogs don't get walked, so they go to the bathroom inside the house and in the laundry area that's right by the kitchen. They only get let out to the side yard from time to time, and the dogs have to pass by the bathroom to get to it, which explains why there's so much hair and paw prints and dirt all over the place. I even started feeling uncomfortable showering there because I didn't feel like I was in a clean environment, and I feel terrible for the animals. Then, a really awful smell that almost made me throw up appeared from the laundry area. He mentioned it, and I asked him what he thought it was, and he said it was puke from the dogs, but he couldn't see where it was coming from. The day after, he wanted to invite his friends over to hang out, so I told him he'd have to clean up that smell at the very least before they arrived. He told me that he would if he had the time, and I started to feel even more disgusted than before. Well, he didn't have enough time for the next day, and his brother and him figured it was a great idea to burn cantaloupe incense right before their friends came in just to try and mask the smell. They were hanging out on the table right by the smell the entire time they were there. At this point, I was beyond grossed out. I spoke to him about it, as well as the mess and the lack of urgency to clean up the smell, and he said that staying on top of cleaning with the dogs was an uphill battle, and he had to some degree just given up on even trying to keep things clean. He also told me that he doesn't plan on living like that once he lives on his own and will not be getting any pets. As for the smell, he told me that he didn't think that it was puke and thought it might be some sort of animal or rodent and didn't want to clean it up and find something in front of me, so he brushed it off as much as he could just so he could get to it after I left. I told him I would have rather seen whatever it was and saw that there was at least some initiative on his part to clean it up right then and there, as opposed to letting me think that it's not a priority to live in a clean space. I feel weird because cleanliness is very important to me, and I just can't imagine what I experienced. I do not want, nor could I live like that in the future, and I kind of want to end it, but he is a great guy in all other respects. So now I'm honestly at such a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. The way your boyfriend is living is absolutely disgusting. Like, he is letting the dogs go to the bathroom inside the house, he's letting these smells and the awful mess just pile up, and he has no initiative to try and take care of it like right away, or even in like, I don't know, the next hour or so. Like, this guy is super lazy, and trust me when I say this, I am right there with you. How can anybody live that way? That seriously is so disgusting, it's not even funny. And I really think it's wise of you to identify this as a massive red flag. And here's the thing, I don't believe this guy for a second when he's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna live like this when I have my own place. It's like, buddy, yes, you absolutely are. If you're willing to let this slide in this kind of environment, then you're absolutely gonna let that slide in another environment. Claiming you're not gonna do that in a new place, all without any kind of evidence to back that up, in my opinion, is just a straight up lie. Like, he couldn't even hire like a cleaning service to do a deep clean all day, like even while he's at work or something like that. I mean, it might be expensive, but good lord, it's better than what they're living in right now. So honestly, I don't blame you for reconsidering this relationship, because this guy lives like an absolute slob, and that, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. My entitled friend constantly destroys other people's buildings in our Minecraft server, leaving things in absolute rubble and ruining the experience for everybody involved. And after dealing with this for so long, I finally snapped after this guy destroyed one of my builds that took me 4 months to make. And now, after banning him from my server, I'm now being called a jerk, and I'm struggling to understand if I made the right decision. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 26-year-old male from Australia who loves to play video games, especially Minecraft. I play Minecraft with a group of guys who are from New Zealand, and there's 7 of us in total. I met them in 2014 while playing Grand Theft Auto on the Xbox 360, and we've all been friends ever since. In 2019, Minecraft turned 10 years old and started its big comeback, and my friends and I all jumped at the opportunity and played it together. We would play it on just one world, where we would only be able to play when the owner of the world was on. At the start of the pandemic, and not being able to go outside, I decided to open a realm. And in case you don't know what a realm is, it's a server from Minecraft where anyone can go on whenever they want, even if I wasn't online. And this was really fun for all of us, as some of my friends are really creative at building stuff. Unfortunately, in every group of friends, there is always a jerk who ruins the fun for everyone, and that person in this case is someone by the name of Jason. Jason is not their real name. He was one of those types of people who just had an itchy trigger finger, so if you build something in the realm and left it for the night, chances are when you get back on, it would have been blown up. He's also made some awful jokes, doing things in-game that are just completely inappropriate, that are just not funny, and they really just make everybody feel awkward. He would invade people's areas and build something that was really stupid, or something that was just super offensive. And even one time, he built a bunker underneath one of my friend's houses, while also putting a really offensive symbol on the front of it. But you know what? After dealing with this for so long, I finally snapped, and I decided that enough was enough. I was building a castle in the realm, and I had just finished it. It took me 4 months to make it, and it could have taken me about 2 to 3 months, but in the process of building it, I was moving out of my parents' house, and I had a lot of stress with work and getting home late, and I just couldn't be bothered to get on and finish it. After I finished it, I sent a photo of it to our group chat on Facebook just to show it off. Everyone was so excited about it, and everybody mentioned how good it looked. And in the back of my head, I was just really hoping that Jason would leave it alone, because trust me, he's on thin ice. If he destroyed anyone's builds ever again, he would get the ban. But oh, how I was so wrong. I logged out and I went to bed, and the next morning I was gonna start designing the inside of the castle and possibly do some expansion on it. But when I got into the realm, my heart lodged up against my throat. All I saw was a massive crater where my castle was supposed to be, with half of it missing and the top part still intact. I was more than angry at this moment. I was absolutely raging. So after I calmed down, I quickly grabbed my phone and went into the group chat to yell at Jason. I saw that when I got on, all of them were in a phone call. So I went in and absolutely raged. I jumped into the call and I started yelling at him. I said to him, "What is wrong with you? I spent 4 months making that castle and you just had to be your jerk self." He tried to claim his innocence, but I was not having it. I told him time and time again. If you do it to me or anyone else, I will ban him. So you know what? That's exactly what I did. He was banned as soon as I got out of the call and back into the game. But now I'm wondering if I did the right thing, because now my friends are telling me to add him back, but I simply can't trust him anymore. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are absolutely not the jerk in this scenario. And before anyone tries to make fun of this scenario and be like, wow, it's just Minecraft, here's the thing. Some of these builds take a long time to make. Like, this guy spent 4 months working on this thing. If I spent 4 months building something up just to have it then torn apart by some jerk who likes to grief other people, I would lose my mind. I would be banning him so fast there wouldn't even be a discussion. Because here's the thing, none of your other friends did this. No one else would be so low as to do this to you. Jason is the only one with a record in this regard, and unless someone's trying to sabotage him or something like that, then he's absolutely the one who did this. So in my opinion, you are not the jerk. This guy absolutely had to be banned. And in my opinion, I absolutely think you made the right choice. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I'm worried that my boyfriend is disrespecting my friends and family by not being involved or introducing himself to them. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and I would say I'm a pretty late bloomer. I just never had the urge to date, and the only reason I joined any dating application was because all my friends were doing it. I managed to meet a wonderful guy, and we've been official for about 10 months now. I feel like I have a hard time navigating relationships since this is my first one. I occasionally struggle with my mental health and have some baggage due to my parents' messy relationship. My boyfriend is great, but I'm also his first girlfriend, so it does feel a bit like the blind leading the blind. My main issue is that while he is super understanding, patient, and caring towards me, he doesn't seem to have any urge to get to know my family or the important people in my life, nor has he made any significant effort to try and introduce or talk about his family or friends. At times, I feel like we're just friends. It seems like he hasn't really thought deeply about what exactly he wants in a partner, only that we have a good time when we hang out. My friends recently brought it to my attention that he's been a bit rude to some of them, and my dad has mentioned it as well. The first time he met my dad, it was when he and a couple of my girlfriends were over hanging out at my house. My dad dropped in to say hello, and while my girlfriends greeted my dad, he just sat there, not saying anything or really acknowledging my dad in any way. I'm from an immigrant family, so respecting your elders is kind of a big deal, but his family is very much American, so I get why there might be some kind of discontent. I didn't say anything at the time because my dad told me not to make a big deal out of it, even though he was also annoyed by the situation. My friends also pointed out to me that when I first introduced him to them at the party, he did not really introduce himself or shake their hands or anything, which I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I didn't really notice. In addition, I've invited him to a couple of events and meals with my friends, and he rarely has a word to say. Now, both of us are introverts, so I can understand how my group of very loud, extroverted people, who are mostly women, can be super intimidating. But when I first introduced him to everyone, he seemed like he was genuinely trying to make an effort to engage with them. The last couple of events, I brought him and he mostly just talked to me, or scrolled on his phone the rest of the time, but he seems to get along with all of the guy friends that occasionally show up no problem. I've sensed that he is a bit uncomfortable at times, and I've tried to let him know, both in the moment and in general, that if he's not up for activities with everyone, we can split off and just do our own thing. But he's told me every time that he's fine with it, and I'm sort of left having to manage the awkward rift between him and my friends. I'm planning on talking to him about these things after my friends and I talk this weekend. They also recommended that I really take some time and process my emotions first, so I can figure out exactly what it is I'm upset with in our relationship. We've never really had a disagreement until now, and I don't even think he's picked up on the fact that I've been thinking about things. So I'm really trying to figure this situation out because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, it doesn't sound like your boyfriend's trying to be disrespectful in any kind of way. It really does sound like he's very introverted, and when he's around large groups of people, especially people that he doesn't know, he kind of shuts down and just kind of stays to himself. That doesn't seem like he's being very disrespectful at all in my opinion. It also really seems like the only times he's had the chance to meet your friends or family is when it's in a large group of people, not even on an individual basis. So if he really is just super shy in social situations and he's really awkward and trying to figure this stuff out, it kind of makes sense as to why he would be standoffish, but in that same note, I can't understand for a second why you or your parents would be like, wow, he's really rude. Like, that just doesn't seem like the case in the slightest in my opinion, and I'm pretty convinced that there's a lot more going on here than you're really aware of. So I don't know, maybe it's time to have a conversation with him and try and figure out what's going on, as well as how to figure this situation out. Because I'm willing to bet that after 10 months, he's not trying to be rude to your friends or family, and if anything, he's probably just super awkward and shy, and he doesn't know how to open up to people that he doesn't know. Am I the jerk for being completely and brutally honest with my father when I explained why I was moving away and how I didn't feel connected with him in the slightest? Here's what happened. So I am not that close to my dad anymore. I was until I was about 13, but that changed. He either only realized it now or only started to care now that I'm living a more independent life, and he's not as involved as he wants to be. I was 8 when I lost my mom, and we were as close as ever, but I needed him more. Then when I was 11, he remarried, and he became a stepdad to a girl who was 10 at the time. Now, this is where full honesty comes in. I was so jealous that my dad was trying to bond with her, and that he called her his daughter, and the both of us his girls right away. It made me feel less special. It made me feel like I didn't matter as much, because how could someone so new to him be equal to me after hardly any time? Every time he spent time with her, I felt sick. He still spent time with me, but after 6 or 7 months of marriage, he started to spend more time with his stepdaughter, and I hated it. I was both devastated and furious that she was getting my dad. I was 13 when my dad said to me that he preferred hanging out with her over me because they had similar interests. He said he couldn't spend enough time with his stepdaughter, and he was hoping I would hit the teenage phase of not wanting my parents around me that much. He didn't say this to me, but I heard him say it. His best friend was one of the people he did say it to, and he was like, dude, don't say that out loud. And my dad said that most parents probably feel that way. He said that it wasn't like he would ever tell that to my face. He then admitted that he also resented me for not wanting his wife the way her daughter wanted him. He wanted us to be the perfect little family, and we looked like a step family where the step is always used because I didn't really want his wife for stuff. Well, I gave him his wish, and over the years, he increased the amount of time he spent with his stepdaughter. They could do stuff together up to 4 times a week. That was until she was about 16 and wanted space. He was devastated by that, and that crushed me. So I decided that was all I needed to know and didn't even try to get closer to him. He later approached me about the question why after I moved in with my boyfriend, and his dad helped us move our stuff. My dad said he expected to be called, and then he asked me why I had pulled away from him. So I told him everything, from the jealousy to what I heard him say, and I told him that I decided that I wasn't going to keep close like I had when he felt that way about me. Well, my dad was offended that I had ever been jealous. He told me it was disgusting to want to deny his stepdaughter the chance at a dad. He also told me that he should be allowed to have other interests in common with someone other than me. So I told him that he was, but I was also a kid who lost my mom and clung to my sole living parent. He then accused me of manipulating him by saying all that, so I told him he shouldn't have asked a question if he didn't want an honest answer. He then told me to get lost with that attitude and then said I should grow up. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I find it very ironic that your father dodged the question where he basically said he resented you and didn't want you around. Like, he literally just skated around all of that. He attacked all the other issues that you had with him, how you were jealous at your stepsister, how you were stuck feeling completely left out, and how he ignored you and focused on her. He went after all that other stuff, but he didn't deny the fact that he didn't want you around. And it's like, buddy, you completely missed the point. This guy failed as a father and literally is his own downfall when it comes to you leaving his life. Like, seriously, you were a child at the time. You just lost your mother, and then suddenly your dad's like, oh, we've got a new family, time to get going. Like, seriously, that is tragic. That is so unacceptable, it's not even funny. I can only imagine getting treated that way and then trying to figure out what you're gonna do next with your life. Like, seriously, this is all his fault. He did this to you. And if he can't understand that, then that's literally his problem. It's almost as if once he got remarried and got a new stepdaughter, he tried to make them the center of his world, instead of, I don't know, grieving with the loss of his wife, as well as the loss of a mother to his daughter. If he was a better father, he would have looked inward and done everything he could to make your life better. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you made the right choice of getting away from him, and if you really do decide to go no contact with your dad, he will literally have no one else to blame except for himself. My girl girlfriend of 8 years was caught texting another guy, and after breaking up with her and cutting things off entirely, we decided to get back together again. But now I'm so paranoid that she might try that again that I'm seriously at a loss and I don't know what to do. So for a bit of backstory, me and my girlfriend have been together for 8 years on and off while I was away at university. Once I finished university, we reconnected properly and everything was great, or so I thought. One night I picked my girlfriend up after a night out and she was blackout drunk. I took her home, helped her get into bed, and that's when she immediately fell asleep. Well, her phone was in her coat that she left on the floor and I removed it, ready to try and put it next to her. This is when I noticed that it was non-stop vibrating. Wondering who could possibly be messaging my girl at 2 in the morning, I did something I'm not really proud of and I checked her phone. Well, it turns out it was a guy. Let's call him John. John is not his real name. And he was the one that was messaging her. I read back through the text messages and I was horrified. It had been going on for weeks. Nothing outrageous was being said, but the letter X was typed over and over again after each message. They had discussed going to a cinema together, though I don't think it actually materialized, as well as a lot of winky emojis. I confronted her the next morning, to which she tried to claim he was just a friend. But you know what? I called BS and I ended up breaking up with her. This lasted for a few months, where I briefly dated another girl before reconnecting with the current girl. She came to me and apologized for what she had done, saying that she was determined to change and that she was just insecure and fed off the attention but had no intention of ever meeting John. She started therapy and made a big effort to regain my trust, and eventually we ended up back together. She is no longer doing therapy and things are mostly good with us. That being said, I still don't fully trust her, and in a way I am paranoid. Anytime I see her with her phone and it's face down, or she's texting a long message, I immediately think the worst. On top of this, I saw a podcast talking about how women who cheat but are eventually forgiven never respect their partner afterwards, and it's only a matter of time before she does it again. So I am torn in this decision. My girlfriend really is a great person that I could see myself marrying, and yes, I get it. She made a mistake born out of her own insecurity, but she has made effort to change. However, I fear I cannot trust her fully after this, which could ruin our relationship down the line. So I'm honestly at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. First of all, you're very brave in getting back together with a girl that basically tried to cheat on you. I don't care what anyone else might think about this, to be honest. The fact that she was messaging another guy and trying to make plans or lead in a direction that was super sketchy, that in my opinion is an absolute deal breaker, and I would have moved on and gone to somebody else. So the fact that you went back to her honestly blows my mind. Seriously, why would you go back into a relationship with someone who you don't fully trust? You're already paranoid that she might be doing it again and going through one of her insecurity phases, which by the way, that's a massive cop-out and just complete BS in my opinion. She wanted to fool around with John, let's not get this confused for something that it isn't. And she used the excuse of, oh, I'm just insecure, as some kind of get out of jail free card, just so she can try and have some way out of this awful behavior. And sure, she's going to therapy and she's making a lot of effort to regain your trust and all this other stuff, and frankly, I think that's fantastic. But personally, in my opinion, I think it's too little too late. And also, I've got to clarify here, I don't think this was a mistake. She knew what she was doing. She texted this guy with the intention of meeting up, and the only reason that didn't happen was because you confronted her and broke up with her. So personally, whatever you decide to do, I would just be very careful, and I would be very measured on if this is what you want to deal with for the rest of your relationship. My dad humiliated me at one of my favorite stores at the mall, and now I'm dreading having to go back after the way that he treated me. Here's what happened. So about a month ago, I went to one of mine and my sister's favorite stores in the mall with my cousin and her boyfriend, and got 2 anime figures for my sister's birthday coming up that month. However, I missed the return limit on the receipt as I didn't plan to return it. That is, until I decided to get petty and return it after my sister started to be mean to me. Well, my dad drove me and we went to return it. However, because the day limits had passed, I couldn't get any of the money back. But my dad, who I always had a strange relationship with emotion-wise, advised me to walk around the store, and so I did. I came back and not only did they return the figures, but they gave me $99 as a gift card to use up until January. I was happy, though I found out later I only got it because my dad went in deep detail to the cashiers about my autism and basically made it sound like I was an idiot. I always feel uncomfortable using my autism as some kind of pity reward, and I even hate going through the process of getting getting a fast pass during an amusement park trip. Anyways, November is my time of the year to go out of my way and buy gifts for Christmas, and I decided to use that gift card to pay for gifts for my cousin and my sister, with my mom entrusting me to get some stocking stuffers as well. I was left alone as my dad wandered the store and actually found a cool item for my cousins. It was an anime figure from my sister's favorite anime. Pricing wasn't a huge thing for me since I had the card and store rewards. The item was $23 and the figure was about $60, so added up it would have been about $83 in total, which was fine. And so I headed up to the counter and was in the middle of paying for my products. The guy had just scanned the items, and I got the gift card out when my dad finally showed up. He stood right beside me and looked at what I was getting. He saw the price of the figure and absolutely lost it. He said that it's way too much money and said that I couldn't return this item, which wasn't my intention at all. I just returned the figurine last time was to not reward my sister's behavior towards me and so I could get my money back. He then started telling the cashier to remove it. I argued back at him that it was fine, I have enough, and I wasn't going to return it. We went back and forth with him getting louder this time and actually told the guy to remove the figurine and then apologize for my behavior. I just stood there wanting to crawl in a pit and disappear. The cashier looked at me with obvious pity and discomfort about the whole thing as he removed the figurine. I paid and my dad decided to show other gifts I can get my sister instead. He showed me this mini LED mushroom light. It's cute, but she doesn't have room for it. He then showed me a plushie of her Hogwarts house. And again, it's really cute, but we have dogs that will rip it to shreds and she wouldn't like that. He then showed me this anime rice bowl, and again, it was cute, but we don't have room for things like bowls and cups. We left right afterwards, and I'm dreading returning to that store after today. I know I have to in order to get my sister something, but I really do hate going to a store in the mall a second time in the same month. And now with my dad treating me like an idiot in front of so many people over $80 I can easily pay with or without that gift card because I saved up so much. So honestly, this is all so embarrassing and I'm really not looking forward to going back to that store. Yeah, what your dad did was really inappropriate. That was so intrusive and honestly just completely uncalled for. The fact that he called you out in front of the store clerk and basically prevented you from buying something that you very clearly and obviously could have paid for is so highly inappropriate and it's just not fair. You can't just treat someone like that and expect it to be okay. But trust me when I say this, on a lighter note, you can know for certain that none of those store clerks are going to remember that scenario. When I worked customer service, I ran into so many weird people it's not even funny. But with most of them, if not all of them, I honestly don't remember the people's faces. Like I could not spot them out of like a police lineup if I had to. Some of the situations I absolutely could, especially when you're treated like garbage. But in this scenario, it seems like your dad was just being a massive jerk and he really embarrassed you in a way that was so inappropriate. So hopefully you can remember that when you go back to the store, because I guarantee that those cashiers are not going to care about what happened previously in the slightest. My entitled family constantly ropes me into babysitting all of their kids anytime I go to a family event or gathering. And after dealing with this since I was 14 years old, I finally decided that enough was enough, forcing my family to see that I will not be pushed around like that and that I refuse to take care of anyone's children against my will. Here's what happened. I never wanted to be a babysitter, but somehow that's what I always ended up being at every family gathering. It didn't matter if I barely knew the kids or the parents. They would always find a way to dump them on me and then disappear. It started when I was 14 years old and continued until I was in my 30s. I had moved away from my extended family when I was 5, so I didn't see them very often. But whenever there was a birthday, a wedding, or a holiday, they would invite me and my parents to join them, and that's when the trouble began. The first time it happened, I was sitting at a table with my cousin and his wife, who just had a baby. They seemed nice enough, but as soon as they finished their food, they handed me the baby and said they were going to get some drinks. They didn't ask me if I wanted to hold him or if I knew how to take care of him. They just assumed I would be happy to do it, but I wasn't. I had never held a baby before, and I had no idea what to do with him. He was tiny, fragile, and he smelled like milk and diapers. He started crying after a few minutes, and I panicked. I tried to rock him, to sing to him, to make funny faces at him, but nothing worked. He just cried louder and louder, attracting the attention of everyone in the room. I looked around for his parents, hoping they would come back and rescue me, but they were nowhere to be seen. They had left me alone with their child without a word of explanation or apology. I felt angry and betrayed, maid. How could they do this to me? This happened many more times over the years until I finally had enough. The last time it happened, when I was now in my 30s, was at a party and gathering with my husband's family. I decided to take matters into my own hands. Once again, parents came over to introduce themselves and left their baby with me, even though I clearly told them I was uncomfortable with them doing so. But then they'll say to me that, oh, it'll just be a minute. Well, 10 minutes pass, and then 30 minutes pass, and then finally the hour mark approaches, and the baby is getting very fussy. So I get up from the table, carrying the baby with me, and I walk towards the bar where I had last seen them. I push my way through the crowd of people, ignoring their stares and comments, and I finally spotted them, laughing and chatting with some other relatives with their glasses of wine in hand. They looked relaxed and happy, oblivious to my plight. And it was at that moment I decided I wasn't going to take this any longer. So after watching this baby for over an hour, I marched up to these entitled parents, and I thrust the baby into their arms. I said to them, "Here you go, take your kid back." When I did this, they looked at me with surprise and annoyance. My sister-in-law then said, "What's wrong?" I looked at her incredulously. "What's wrong? You left me with your baby for an hour without asking me or telling me where you were going. You expected me to babysit while you had fun. That's what's wrong." They both exchanged shocked glances. The husband said, "Oh, we're sorry. We just wanted to catch up with everyone. We didn't think you would mind." I said to them firmly, "I do mind. I am not your babysitter. I'm your sister-in-law, and I came here to enjoy myself and not look after your kid." They mumbled some more apologies and excuses, but I didn't listen. I turned around and I walked away from them, feeling proud of myself for standing up to them. And I thought that would be the end of it, but boy was I wrong. The next time I saw them, they had another baby, and they tried to do the same thing again. And so did other relatives who had kids. And this was on multiple occasions, by the way. It honestly became a pattern. Every time there was a family event, someone would dump their kid on me and then disappear. It didn't matter if they were my aunts, uncles, cousins, or in-laws. They all seemed to think that because I was an only child, and because I didn't have any kids of my own, that I would love to play nanny for them. But they were wrong. I hated it. I hated being treated like a free service. I hated being ignored and taken for granted. I hated being stuck with kids who were noisy, messy, demanding, and sometimes just straight up rude. I hated missing out on the fun and conversations that everyone else was having. And I hated feeling like an outsider in my own family. So you know what? I stopped going. I stopped accepting their invites, and they didn't seem to notice or care in the slightest. They never asked me why I stopped coming along. They never apologized for what they did, and they never tried to make it up to me. They just moved on with their lives, without me and their family parties and events. Now, I didn't totally leave my family altogether. I still see them. I just never see them at parties or family gatherings anymore. And they just act like nothing ever happened and life goes on. I love hanging out with the family outside of like a party situation. And to be fair, the kids are great fun to be around as long as I'm not expected to babysit them, which I never once said I was okay with at any point. At the end of the day, we are all still family, and I think they got the message that I am not their babysitter. Honestly, good for you for standing up for yourself. I can only imagine how annoying that would be to literally go to every family gathering and then have like a truckload of kids dropped off at your feet as the parents just say, "Okay, see you later, we'll be back in a minute." Meanwhile, they're getting drunk at the bar and everyone's having a good time except for you. That really sucks, and that's super unfair. And unfortunately, when it comes to standing up for yourself against really entitled people, sometimes these people just don't care. They literally just see you as a babysitter, completely diluting your existence down to somebody who can just watch their kids for a while. So when you stop showing up, it honestly is not surprising to me that these people didn't notice or even try to reach out to you, which honestly says a lot more about them than it does about you. I mean, I know when I go to family events, I really want to have a good time. I don't go there to babysit other people's kids. I go there to meet with family members and have a good time and just catch up with people. But when you're being stuck with all these kids, it makes it like impossible to do anything like that. So honestly, overall, good for you for standing up for yourself. I would have done the exact same thing if I was in your situation, because the way your family was treating you was really unfair, and you did not deserve to be stuck babysitting all those kids, especially if you didn't agree to it in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not going to my friend's wedding? All because my girlfriend wasn't invited. Here's what happened. I first want to start off by saying that every name in this story is fake. So I'm a 26-year-old male, and I've been with my girlfriend by the name of Kelly for almost 5 years. A year and a half ago, my friend Maverick got not engaged to his fiancée Brittany. I have been friends with Maverick for over 10 years. Maverick and I went to high school together, and our families are very close to each other. Maverick is in the military now, and we don't talk as much, but I still consider him a good friend. When Kelly and I started dating, Maverick was dating a girl by the name of Ashley. Kelly and Ashley became very close, but Maverick broke up with Ashley 2 years later, and Kelly was sad she wouldn't be seeing Ashley regularly, but she still wanted to be friends. Well, very shortly, meaning like a few days after Maverick broke up with Ashley, he started hooking up and then started dating Ashley's roommate at the time. Kelly found out and called Ashley, and Ashley was crushed. A month after they started dating, Maverick introduced us to Brittany. Kelly was upset that this was Ashley's roommate, and she FaceTimed Ashley when she was around Brittany to make her feel bad. After this, Kelly was very upset with Maverick and sent him a series of messages saying she lost respect for him and some other mean things about Brittany. I think Kelly went too far, and I wasn't happy that she got involved. Eventually, Kelly ended up apologizing to Maverick. Since these incidents 3 years ago, we have not seen Brittany again. We have heard from others that Brittany is controlling about who Maverick sees, and she has refused to see us every time they have been in town. Maverick doesn't live in town anymore, so I don't see him all the time, but we have hung out 1 to 3 times a year when he visits our city. Kelly has seen him only once since the incident, and was civil and friendly towards Maverick. Well, Maverick and Brittany announced that they are getting married about 6 months ago. I found out that their wedding is the same day as Kelly's birthday. Kelly has been nervous for months that she wouldn't be invited, but I assured her that Maverick wouldn't do that. Well, I got the save the date about 6 weeks ago, and it was only addressed to me, but I didn't think that was weird. I texted Maverick and asked if I had a date, and he did not reply. I used their wedding website to RSVP about a week ago, and I was able to enter Kelly's name as well. Fast forward to yesterday, and Maverick texted me and said that he does not want Kelly at their wedding. He said that based on what happened with the girls, that he and Brittany are not comfortable with Kelly being there. Well, needless to say, Kelly is crushed. She wants to be with me on her birthday, and overall has a tough relationship with her birthday. Additionally, we got into a very big fight 2 years ago because I went to a family wedding without her. So honestly, am I the jerk for not going to my friend's wedding, all because my girlfriend wasn't invited? I don't think you're the jerk for not going to the wedding, but it's seriously so comical to me that your girlfriend's upset that she didn't get invited. Like, are you kidding me right now? She got involved in something she had no business getting involved in. Yes, she really did like Ashley as a friend, and she felt that Ashley was getting messed over by Maverick in some kind of way, but the way she went about handling this was so inappropriate and immature. Like, seriously, why on earth would you get in the middle of something like this? It honestly doesn't make any sense. Like, she willingly put herself in a weird position all over the fact that Maverick broke up with his girlfriend. Like, come on, why would you do that? And sure, I get it. Brittany is supposedly very controlling of Maverick, but from the sounds of it, it really doesn't seem like you know him that well anymore. You only see him 1 to 3 times a year, and it seems like he agrees with Brittany that no, we don't want your girlfriend showing up. So no, you're not the jerk for saying you don't want to go, but literally this is the consequences of your girlfriend's actions. And if she really wanted to be invited to that wedding, then she probably should have minded her own business. Am I the jerk for being upset at my boyfriend after he forgets to get me a gift for my birthday for the 2nd year in a row? Here's what happened. So I'm in a relationship with my boyfriend, and it's been almost 3 years together. I'm a 20-year-old female and he is 22 years old. We are mainly long distance, and last year he did not send a birthday gift to me, and I was very upset over this. Meanwhile, I sent him an entire cake, and his friend surprised him with it on the day of his birthday. Well, I thought that this year he would send a birthday gift and plan for it to reach me by my birthday, which is in September, essentially making up for it from last year. But you know what? He didn't. Not even flowers. I was so upset again, and we argued over this a few times, where he asked me to have some patience because he's putting something together. I finally blow up at him over this in the start of November, and he sends me his gift after the argument, which is something he clearly put together last minute. It was a cheap picture frame of a photo of us and a couple of cards that seemed to be put together in a rush. I always thought birthday presents were meant to be something you've wanted throughout the year, something meaningful or something you could do for yourself, like get your nails done or something like that. I was really upset when I received the gift, and I just blew up at him over it. It seemed like the things he wrote were just regurgitated text messages, very generic and nothing special, or little things he remembered about me in there. He said I was ungrateful because he only received $50 from me on his birthday this year, which I I sent for him to get his hair cut, as well as for him to get food on me. I was upset that a shut-up gift was sent to me even after nothing last year, and even then it was sent to me 2 months late. I guess he realized he was in the wrong and promised to make it up to me next year. I feel like I don't deserve this. My friends and family say to leave him. Now, for some additional context, he visits me once or twice a year. I'm currently not able to visit him, even though he and I very much want to. He says that visiting is expensive, and it's what he does for this relationship, and just accuses me of being ungrateful for that. I very much appreciate him for that, but I feel like my birthday is one day a year where he could go out of his way to do something meaningful. And I mean even just try to do something. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for feeling angry and hurt over this? Because at this point, I really don't know what to do. It is really sad that your boyfriend forgot your birthday. Like, he literally didn't do anything for your birthday 2 years in a row. And then when you start complaining, he's like, okay, fine, I'll send you something. And then what he sends you is literally just that. It's a gift and some cards just to get you to shut up and stop bothering him. It wasn't something meaningful. It wasn't something that you were really looking forward to. He just didn't want you to complain anymore. And that, in my opinion, is so insulting. I would be upset about this as well. Like, seriously? You've been in a relationship for 3 years, and 2 of those 3 years you can't even think about your girlfriend's birthday? It's not like he didn't know about it too, by the way. He absolutely knew what was going on, and he knew that your birthday was coming up, and he just still didn't plan on it. That's the part that honestly blows my mind. Like, for me personally, if I was the boyfriend in this situation, I would be like, okay, I don't want to mess up like last year. I have got to have something really special this year to try and make up for last year. Like, I don't know about you, but I would be like super stressed out about that. I would want to make sure that it's perfect and that I'm not doing something wrong, and that it all gets to my girlfriend, who, by the way, doesn't live next to me. This is literally a long distance relationship. Like, don't you think that gift giving and somehow like reaching out would be incredibly crucial for that kind of situation? So no, I don't think you're the jerk for getting upset. I think it's incredibly inappropriate that your boyfriend, once again for the 2nd year in a row, completely forgot about your birthday. And in my opinion, you have every right to be upset and angry with him. My mother-in-law is going through a lot of grief after her husband and her daughter passed away, but as a result, she has become completely unhinged, causing scenes and making awful remarks towards me and my husband. And I'm now at a loss, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I married my husband 4 months ago. We dated all through high school and college, so we have been in each other's lives and in each other's families for quite some time. My husband's father died when we were seniors in high school, and his sister passed away 3 years ago as well. Since then, his mother has been, in my opinion, unhinged. I cannot imagine her sense of loss, and I know everyone has their own grief process, so I really try not to judge, but she makes everything about her grief. She didn't come to our college graduation because she would never get to see her daughter graduate from college. We try to be especially kind to her on Mother's Day, but she spends hours at the cemetery and gets very irate if we leave before she's ready to. She insists that we give our first child her husband's name as a first or middle name, and gets angry when we say we'll name our future children as we see fit. There have been other incidents too. She's done so much to push my husband away while also relying on him for emotional and sometimes financial support. They now have a very unhealthy relationship, but it all came to a head when we were wedding planning. I invited her to come wedding dress shopping with me, my mom, my grandma, and my maid of honor. I told her that she did not need to come along if it was going to be painful for her, but she said she would be happy to. To all of our surprise, she showed up and brought a wedding gown that her daughter had purchased to save for her own wedding someday. She said it would help her if I tried it on, and I did, which made her cry. But then she insisted that it was my dress and I didn't need to get another one. After multiple refusals, she pouted the rest of the time, and let me tell you, it was so awkward for everybody else. This led to a lot of drama, to the point where me and my husband did not want her at the wedding because we couldn't trust her to not cause some kind of scene, and because we thought it would be terrible for her mental health. We asked her to not come, and she agreed not to. Well, I got to have a dance with my dad, and my mom surprised my husband by stepping in for a mother's dance with him. They smiled and laughed the whole time, and to me, it was the most special part of our wedding. I recently changed my Facebook cover photo to a picture of my husband and my mom dancing and laughing together. Well, my now mother-in-law saw this and has been coming at us for it, saying it's just a reminder that she was excluded from her son's wedding day. I told her I'm not not taking it down, and that if she doesn't want to see it, she can simply not look at my Facebook page. She says I'm inconsiderate of her feelings and that I'm a jerk for this, all because it's driving another wedge between her and her son. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? It really sounds like your mother-in-law is not doing well mentally. First and foremost, no, you are not driving a wedge between her and her son. She is literally doing that herself. The way she's acting and pushing her grief on everybody else is really inappropriate and honestly really sad. She's clearly going through a hard time, but she's also doing nothing to try and fix her situation. Like, she's not talking to a doctor about being depressed or having a lot of pain in her life, and she's not going to the right people to try and figure this out. Instead, she's taking it out on her son and now her daughter-in-law. Like, honestly, with what you described, I don't blame you for saying, hey, don't show up to our wedding. You're just gonna cause problems and we don't want to deal with that. Because I would have done the exact same thing. Like, she tried to get you to wear her daughter's dress. Like, seriously, that's just really weird in my opinion. Now look, don't get me wrong. I totally understand that people go through a lot of grief and it takes people a long time to try and figure things out. But I really think that externalizing that grief and pushing it on other people and using it like a weapon to swing around and club people over the head with it, that in my opinion will only push people away. And nobody in their right mind should ever have to deal with that. Because in my opinion, after a few years of dealing with that, it is going to be the reason why nobody wants to talk to her anymore. So no, you're not the jerk for putting a picture up on your Facebook page of your mom and your husband dancing together. That is a beautiful memory you have every right to showcase to people online if you want to. And she has no right to try and decide what you can and cannot do with your life. My significant other is no longer contributing to the household, constantly pushing bills and other responsibilities on me to pay for, and now as a result, I'm literally living paycheck to paycheck. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So me and my significant other have been together for about 3 years, and before moving in together, all was good. Early on, before moving in, I had made double what she made, so I had contributed a little bit more to date nights and such. However, she always disliked her job because it simply didn't pay well. I had always provided resources since I am an HR worker, so I would give her stuff like resume reviews or interviewing tips and stuff like that. I have also helped her with starting a 401k and a savings account. On the job front, unfortunately, over the years, I was met with excuses. Then, almost 2 years ago, we moved in and worked with a budget to come up with something feasible. If I did the math, it was split at about 80-20, with me covering mostly rent while she covers small expenses like the dog insurance, groceries, and utilities. For a short time, that worked, but later on, it became more apparent that I had to chase her for her share. With inflation, her dog's medical expenses going up as well, not to mention rent going up, it became harder for her to help with those expenses, and I had to bleed some funds from my savings and put more on credit cards. I once had to open another card just to cover a $7,000 surgery bill for her dog every time I've addressed the expenses, and her needing to pay her share, I would then be met with a crying fit from her that her life sucks and that nothing is going well for her. So unfortunately, I ended up backing off and just dealing with it because I was afraid of making her feel like garbage. She would also even say that I make so much more, which is not true. I've had to show her spreadsheets of the impact, which leads to more crying from her. Recently, over the summer, she rage quit her job because of issues amongst the staff, so I truly had to expend more of our expenses. She ended up, after not working for 3 months, starting a retail job and taking a massive pay cut and then hating that job 1 month in because of the hours. I've given more advice and comfort to her because I understand it is an emotional time, but I'm also burnt out. I work a very demanding human resource job in finance, and that already adds to my stress, and I have my master's, so going for more schooling is out of the question. I simply cannot do it. But I'm also now living paycheck to paycheck, all due to her pay cut, and she is now helpless and makes excuses for everything. She doesn't want to go back to school, she's not looking for different fields or doing research, and she's just making excuses for not going to therapy for her depression and anxiety. My therapist has really helped me navigate through a lot of this, and has also honestly asked me if leaving her is on the table, and right now it really is. But I just feel like I've invested so much, and I don't want to give up, but my stress is through the roof lately. Plus, it would be messy, because she would have to move 2 hours to get to her family just to restart everything. I'm not sure what more to do, and I feel like I'm not doing enough as a partner. What more should I do to help her? Or Or how can I even solve these problems to begin with? What should I do? Honestly, it really sounds like you've done everything you possibly can to get things going. Like you've given her advice, you've given her job leads and stuff like that. You've told her exactly how to do her resume and all this other garbage. But instead of like doing something with her life, she just freaks out, has this self-pity party, and starts crying instead of doing anything to improve her situation. Like that seems very manipulative in my opinion, and that is so uncalled for. For reference, the significant other in this story is 36 years old. They are old enough to know that they need to get off their butt and get to work. Like seriously, they're not doing anything right now to contribute to the house. They're seriously just sitting there and letting the original poster handle everything. And that in my opinion is so inappropriate. That's not fair for them, and they are literally losing money in the process. Like seriously, this sounds like a sinking ship, and she's the one to stand up and get her stuff together, because something absolutely has to change here. Because otherwise, this is only going to result in more money being lost. My entitled mother-in-law mocks my husband because of his nose, constantly saying that he should get a nose job, while also constantly putting him down at every chance that she gets. But now I discovered something that absolutely crossed the line, as she photoshopped my wedding photos with my husband just to make my husband's nose look better in her eyes. And I'm so disgusted and disturbed, I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 27-year-old female, and I've been with my husband for 7 years. I remember that early in our relationship, one of the first things he expressed insecurity about was his nose, specifically about how wide it is. He never wanted surgery, but thinks his nose is too big for his face. I never thought that was true, and for a long time I wondered where he'd gotten that idea from. Then I met his mother, and all my doubts went out the window. I don't hate her, but the woman complains about everything, and she seems particularly interested in criticizing her sons. Barely anything about my husband or his older brother is good enough for her, and if it is, she is quick to imply that they don't deserve it. According to my brother-in-law, that behavior didn't start until their father passed away about 8 years ago, so they don't usually hold it against her. But to me, it seems like she legitimately doesn't want her children to be happy. Most times we talk to her, my husband ends up devastated. She constantly complains about me, his job, our apartment, and his appearance. She has on more than one occasion suggested he get a nose job. Now that really tends to upset him, so I always try to shut that down as quickly as possible. We got married in early May. The photos were ready about 2 months later, and we created a shared album on Google Photos for our family and friends, including my mother-in-law. I got pregnant during our honeymoon, and I'm now 24 weeks along. We've had problems with his mom concerning my pregnancy. I mean, we're having a boy, and she had a breakdown because she wanted a girl. So that has forced us to put her on an information diet. That was 2 months ago, and she has since improved her behavior. Because of that, we said yes when she invited us to go to a mall near her place to shop for baby clothes last Saturday. My husband had an emergency at work and ended up not coming, but we still managed to have a good time. When we were done, she invited me back to her place. I had not been there in a while, and I quickly saw that she'd gotten some of our wedding pictures up on the wall. And it's right then that I instantly noticed something was wrong with them, but I couldn't pinpoint what it was yet. My mother-in-law saw what I was looking at and proudly announced that she had finally gotten someone to fix my husband's nose. In other words, she gave her son a Photoshop nose job on his wedding pictures. And when she told me this, I was honestly completely blown away. I couldn't believe it. I never thought she'd stoop so low, and it wasn't even a good nose job. It was so bad that my husband's face didn't even look real. He looked like a Ken doll, and not in the hot Ryan Gosling kind of way. My mother-in-law must have seen how mad I got, because she instantly tried to defend herself. She tried to make the point that her son deserved to look his best on his wedding day, and I should have convinced him to get the real nose job before our ceremony. I made up an excuse to leave, but I could tell she knew the real reason. She's been calling and texting me almost every single day ever since. I've been ignoring her, but she's always either apologizing, accusing me of overreacting, or begging me not to tell my husband. I know it seems trivial, but I'm outraged, and the more I think about it, the more disgusted I get. I could never imagine doing something like that to my child. I haven't told my husband yet, mostly because we've both been busy with work this week, but also because I have no idea how to. His mother was finally starting to be a better person around him and his brother, and I know it will break his heart to find out about this. I don't know what to do. I have to tell him, but I can't figure out how. I know he loves his mother, and I don't want to damage whatever relationship they still have. She also mentioned that she intended to send the improved pictures to some of her relatives, so I have to find a way to try and shut that down. So I'm honestly wondering how I can tell my husband that his mother photoshopped his face on our wedding pictures, because right now I'm kind of at a loss. Before we go any further, the original poster actually has an update for us. Here's what they had to say. I first want to say thank you to everybody who took the time to offer some advice on my last post. First of all, I want to clarify that not telling my husband what his mother did was never truly an option. She wouldn't remove the picture from her house unless I either told him or threatened her. Had I done the latter, she would use that against me in the future or even imply I agreed with her. Plus, he was bound to find out at some point, and I knew it would be better if it came from me. So I was truly asking how to do it, not about whether I should or not. So I sat him down last Saturday and I broke the news. I explained what the pictures were and my mother-in-law's excuses for them. I also showed him the text messages that she had sent me since my visit. The whole conversation, I was calm and straightforward, but I also made it very clear that not only did her actions completely disgust me, but I never agreed with her about his appearance. He's the most gorgeous man I've ever met, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with his nose. I also made sure to point out that the Photoshop nose made him look like front-facing Phineas from Phineas and Ferb, and she needs to get her eyes checked if she really thought it looked good. I thought the news would hurt him, and you know what? I was completely right. He didn't cry or anything like that, but I could see it in his face. The odd but common combination of disappointment and acceptance. He knew his mother wouldn't change, but still had some kind of hope. It was almost heartbreaking to watch, but for the first time in a while, he seemed to believe me when I said his nose was normal. He told me that now that he knew just how ridiculous his mom was willing to be, her opinion meant a lot less to him. So even though he's hurt, he feels stronger than ever. As many of you suggested, I told him that he was free to approach the situation however he pleased, but I don't want to be around his mother anymore. Most importantly, I don't want her around our son or any other kids we might have. Not only because of the guilt-tripping tantrums that have become her standard behavior, but also because of the way she treats the people she's supposed to love. I know she loves her family, but I doubt she knows how love works. If she's willing to treat her sons like this, I fully expect her to be even worse to her grandchildren. In the end, my husband and I decided we're going very low contact with his mom until the holidays. Some of his relatives are throwing a party the week before Christmas, and she will be at that party. We thought about skipping it, but he has cousins he hasn't seen in years coming for that party. He's been looking forward to seeing them for months, and it just doesn't seem fair to let her ruin his excitement. But after the holidays, we'll decide how to proceed. Regardless, she won't be allowed to see our son at the hospital when he's born, and once we bring him home, she won't be left alone with the baby. It doesn't matter how much she tries to improve, that is not something we're willing to budge on. In spite of everything, my husband doesn't want to cut ties with his mother, and I understand that. Even if he wanted to, he can't go fully no contact without cutting off the rest of his maternal family as well, which he is firmly against. What works best for now is to treat her like Domino's Pizza. She exists and that's fine, but we are not getting involved until she actually improves. I also decided to tell some of my own family about this, and everyone I've talked to agrees that my mother-in-law went over the line. My father is a narcissist who I'm mostly low contact with, all because of his entitled behavior, and even he, with all things considered, was incredibly offended on my husband's behalf. We talked to my brother-in-law, and he's the one who informed my mother-in-law of our decision. Well, needless to say, she didn't take this news well at all. She's now trying to call both me and my husband, and keeps texting apologies and promises to take the picture down. But you know what? We're just ignoring her. My brother-in-law visited her yesterday, and apparently the pictures are gone. She believed that was enough for us to forgive her, but he clarified that there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. Now, before anyone calls us dramatic, this isn't just about the Photoshop. This is about the damage she's caused in both her sons' lives. I've dealt with similar things in my teens from my dad's exes, and I refuse to allow my child to grow up believing he's anything less than beautiful. And honestly, the same thing goes for my husband. Yeah, that's an awful thing for the mom to do in that situation. Like, seriously, why do you have to be so mean and be like, wow, your nose is ugly. You should try and get a nose job to fix your ugly big nose. Like, what kind of mother would treat their son like that? So truly good for you and your husband for putting your foot down and setting up some very clear boundaries, because it's abundantly clear that she's incredibly toxic towards you and your husband. And I honestly don't blame you for not wanting that in your life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own story. stories. Am I the jerk for not taking my sister's side about her exclusive wedding choices? Because at this point, she literally won't drop the subject, and I'm kind of at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister is getting married late next year after a really long engagement. Her fiancé has a large family, and she's getting a lot of pressure from his mom to invite a ton of people. She's going for a more expensive venue with a smaller guest list. As a result, she isn't inviting a lot of people's partners, including the best man's boyfriend and my mother-in-law's partner with whom I cohabitate. Initially, I was told I would get a +1 to invite my best friend and old college roommate who lives overseas in the United Kingdom. She spent Christmas with us while she couldn't travel due to COVID and her parents being healthcare workers, so she stayed with the family. Since I moved in with my partner and my friend moved back to England though, my +1 has been rescinded and he has not been invited. Since some people have been responding to the RSVP request with a no, I thought he might end up getting invited, but he still hasn't been. She's met him many times and even stayed in our home with us. My mom, totally without my knowledge, even offered to pay for my partner to be at the wedding because my parents wanted him there. But after this, my sister got in touch saying that he couldn't come at all. She cited expenses, even though mom said that she'd help with it, while also saying that it would be a slippery slope, while also not wanting me to spend the whole day with him so that I could instead focus on her. She stated that if she invited my partner, she'd have to invite the best man's partner as well. Well, I told her that in that case, I understand the best man's frustrations with his other half not being there. I told her that this choice is going to result in people being upset and she just might have to stomach that. She keeps saying that she is scared that I'm going to hate her and that I'm adding to people making her feel bad about her choices, despite the fact that she's the one that brought it up. She stated that she thinks everyone is turning against her and she seems to want me to take her side and be okay with it, but I kind of just can't do that. I genuinely think she's wrong to not invite long-term partners of immediate family. She keeps asking me if I'm going to hate her forever, and I say no, I may disagree with her, but I'm not some kind of grudge-bearing child. But despite all that, she won't let it go. It's like she wants me to tell her I agree with her decision. My partner is my best friend in the world. We have a dog and a whole life together. If anyone else did this, I just wouldn't go to the wedding, but it's my sister and I'm the maid of honor, so I'm going to have to go, but I'm kind of mad at her. I don't want to go on about it and bring it up again. I just simply won't take her side. She's making me feel really bad, like I'm victimizing her by being upset or something like that. I mean, am I making it about me? Should I just drop it and support her choice? What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like she's trying to validate her choice by having somebody on her side. Everybody's upset at her, and for good reason. Like, people are saying, no, I'm not going to show up. I'm not going to reserve a spot because my significant other can't show up. And in your case, she's basically saying, no, I don't want them here. And then she goes on to claim that it's all about her, and that if your partner's there, then you're not going to focus on her special day. That's the dumbest excuse on planet Earth, and that's a complete lie. Because here's the truth. She could easily reverse this right now and be like, hey, if you got invited, you can bring one other person with you. That's it. And then this could literally be solved like overnight. This is one email to everybody that got invited right then and there. She could send out that message and just solve all of her problems. But instead, she's trying to like double down and find somebody that can support her. And that, in my opinion, is just so unacceptable. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation. You didn't do anything wrong. And honestly, I understand where you're coming from. This is your sister after all. So you do kind of have to be there to some extent. But in my opinion, that absolutely does not mean that you have to cave and agree with your sister's stupid decisions. My boyfriend and I have different standards of cleanliness. And as a result, I find myself doing 90% of the household chores while he constantly makes a mess. And at this point, I'm so utterly frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my partner for just over 2 years now. We have been compatible on a lot of levels, but lately we've been running into some roadblocks with cleanliness. I grew up in a pretty messy house. My family typically put off cleaning until things really started to build up, and I realized that when I lived on my own, I tried to be way more organized. My partner's family has always been very clean. No clutter left on any surfaces, the sink was empty, cushions were neatly arranged on the couches, you get the idea. For my partner, however, cleaning is not his strength. When he lived at home, his bedroom was always the only messy room in the house, and since we moved in together about 5 months ago, I've noticed he especially has a tendency to just leave things after he uses them, whether it's his jacket or are a bag sitting on the floor by the door, or even cushions and blankets lying randomly on the couch. And this also includes beer cans or drinks that are left on the tables, as well as cereal boxes left on the counter. He earns more money than me, so he pays about $250 more on rent. As a result, I agreed to work a little bit extra around the house with dishes, vacuuming, laundry, as well as other things. And while I am completely fine with this, it seems like I'm doing 90% of all the household chores. My partner is very busy. He works 2 part-time jobs and 1 full-time as a teacher. Not because he needs the money, but because he likes being busy. He would still be entirely financially sound if he just worked his teaching job. As a result of his schedule, when he gets home, he's absolutely tanked and understandably needs the remainder of the day to rest. I work about 35 hours a week, but tend to start work at around 5 o'clock in the morning and finish work at around 1 o'clock. So I'm typically home for a lot more of the day than he is. I spend about 2 hours each day cleaning, but a lot of my time is spent doing really small things, like cleaning up some of the things that he left behind that could have easily been dealt with in the moment. And moreover, if I don't deal with them myself, it's usually days, if not weeks, before he takes care of them himself. For example, we still have the Halloween decorations he put out because he has procrastinated taking them all down. I began to take them down and asked if he could finish the cleaning, and he agreed, but then did not follow through. They are all his decorations, as Halloween is his favorite season, and he likes to go all out. Lately though, I've been admittedly getting more frustrated with the buildup of clutter, and I feel like I've been nagging him more than usual, especially because he's been working so much that the little time we do have together usually involves me saying something about the condition of the house. Yesterday, we got into an argument about our standards of cleanliness, and he said that being clean and organized is just not for him. I said I am more than happy to do the big things in the house, but I do need him to make more of an effort to do the small things. He told me that I am excessive with the cleaning, and I don't need to do all the tasks I often do. He also said I need to learn to live with some kind of mess, because he is generally not a very organized person. This frustrated me, because I expressed to him how important a general clean space is to me. I also have never commented on the condition of our room and bathroom, which has his clothes and belongings all over the floor. I told him that he has his space, but that I would like the main floor to just remain tidy, but I just can't maintain it all by myself. I told him that it would be a lot easier for me to clean if I didn't have to start by cleaning up a lot of the small messes that keep getting left behind. Stuff like disorganized pillows and blankets, shoes being left out, or even food being left out. But he seemed to interpret this as me saying, "Oh, I'm annoyed because you don't fix the pillows on the couch." On top of this, my partner wants to adopt his own dog, which stresses me out even more with how little he is at home. I know the dog will largely become my responsibility, and on top of all the cleaning I do, it seems like way too much. I feel like I'm being responsible, but he really doesn't seem to even be open to compromise. I recognize that I can probably be more lenient on the clutter, but I keep my mouth shut about the bedroom and upstairs and need a shared space where everything is in its place. I'm so frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. This really is a tricky situation because this guy works 3 jobs. He's a teacher on top of 2 part-time jobs, all just to stay busy. And last I checked, at least during the school year, teachers are plenty busy with what they have going on. So it's really surprising to me that he would be working so much all the time. But on that note, I really do think he needs to do his fair share. Like, this guy's obviously leaving all of this housework to you, and he doesn't respect the fact that you do so much around this house. You're cleaning up, you're getting things tidy, and overall, you're keeping things really nice downstairs. And you put it best, you haven't said anything about the room the 2 of you share, which in my opinion is a big thing that definitely needs to be considered. So with all of that in mind, I don't think that you're being unreasonable in the slightest. I definitely think your partner can step up and do more around the house, because right now it sounds like he's resistant to doing anything around the house at all, and that in my opinion is completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for telling my stepmom that she needs to accept that she will never be my real mother? Here's what happened. So my parents divorced when I was a baby, and my older brother was 2 at the time. Our dad remarried just a year after the divorce, and they created a blended family. Dad had us, and our stepmom had 2 boys who were pretty much the same age as my brother and me, and they have 3 more boys together. My parents split custody of my brother and me, and we always knew life with both parents. We also always knew life with our stepmom, but we still knew that our mom was our mom, and our stepmom was our stepmom. I have never considered my stepmom equal to my my mother in my life. My mom comes first. If I want motherly advice, I go to her. It's my mom that I want when I'm upset. And my stepmom is fine, but she is not my mother. Now, one thing about my stepmom that really makes me awkward around her is that she always wanted to be a mom to a daughter, since she has no girls. Well, she apparently latched onto me from the time she and dad got serious, and my grandparents and aunts and uncles said that she used to try and dress us in matching stuff. She has this weird fixation on me. She's not upset that my brother considers her second best, but it bothers her that I don't consider her my mom. She tells me every year just before Mother's Day that she would love for me to call her on that day while I'm with my mother. She will also ask if I want to do some mother-daughter Mother's Day event with her every year, and I always say no. Then I get to see her face fall and she'll start crying. I don't have that kind of love for her, and I'm not sure I actually do love her. She makes me so uncomfortable with her obsession with me being a girl for her. My mom joined me for a mother-daughter photography trip that was going on for my photography club. We were gone for an entire day and had a great time. Well, my stepmom saw photos of us on social media, and she cried at me asking why I invited my mom when it wasn't even Mother's Day, and then said that I could have invited or asked her instead, and we could have done something cool like that as well. She told me how much she longs to get the experience of being a mom to a daughter. So I told my stepmom that she will never be a mom to a girl, and that I will always be my mom's daughter and not hers. She told me she's been in my life since I was literally a toddler, and that I should see them both as my mom, especially since I spend the same amount of time with both of them. She said it's disgusting that I would reject her over and over again and then tear her down like that when she could easily be my second mom. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? It really sounds like your stepmom's being like super pushy. She clearly is jealous of your actual mom, and she's now trying to take it out on you by guilt tripping you into basically doing all these like mother-daughter things with someone who is not your biological mother. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't know anything about this woman other than the fact that she's like obsessed with you, so I don't know if she's like mean at home or anything like that. I don't know if you're being standoffish and she's really trying to be involved or something like that, so I can't say whether or not you should like throw her a bone and try and develop a better relationship, or if it's a good thing to try and stay away and set some boundaries. But based on what you've described, this would honestly make me very annoyed. I can only imagine having a step-parent acting like that towards me and being like, wow, I'm so glad I have a son in my life. It's like, sure, that's great, but this obsession over me really does not seem healthy, and I feel like this kind of falls in line with what you're dealing with as well, at least from what we know. So honestly, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. Just because she's been around since you're a toddler shouldn't automatically mean that you've connected with her on the same way that she's obsessing with you, because that in my opinion is super weird, and it shouldn't be your problem to manage her emotions. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.